Then I went to Douluo. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. Everything starts from Holy Soul Village. Holy Soul Village. On the hill to the west, there is a huge stone facing east. At this moment, a 6-year-old child is sitting cross-legged on the stone. The child's skin is a healthy wheat color, with black hair and an ordinary and gentle appearance, ordinary but very attractive. A pair of black eyes stared intently at the morning light in the east. The next moment, the sun showed a corner in the east, and at this time, the child also suddenly widened his eyes, and a very faint purple flashed in his eyes. After a while, the child slowly closed his eyes, and soon opened them again, and the purple in his eyes completely disappeared. He let out a long breath, and then patted the child lying next to him. Tang Liu, wake up, it's time to go back. The child sleeping next to him moaned softly and woke up slowly. You're done practicing, brother, the child said while rubbing his eyes. The child is very delicate, even beautiful. A short blue-black hair and a pair of blue-black pupils. The color was strange, but beautiful and enchanting. Unlike the healthy wheat-colored skin of a child next to him, this child's skin was fairer. But the two children looked 4 or 5 points similar, and they were both wearing old, patched coarse cloth. And these two children were Tang San and his biological brother, Tang Liu. Well, today's practice is over, let's go back to eat now, Tang San rubbed Tang Liu's head and said, then got up and pulled Tang Liu down the mountain. Tang San and Tang Liu's home was in the west of Shenghan village, the only blacksmith shop in the entire village. After returning home, Tang San first uncovered a pot on the stove, and then filled each of the 3 bowls that Tang Liu brought over with a bowl of white porridge. Brother, there's too much, I can't finish it, so let's pour half of it for you as before. Tang Liu looked at Tang San filling a large bowl for himself and said hurriedly. Tang San's hand holding the porridge paused, and finally nodded helplessly, pouring half of the porridge in Tang Liu's bowl into his own bowl. You are so skinny, why don't you eat more? Tang San said, carrying the bowl to the table. Tang Liu smiled, I'll go cut some kimchi. Tang San shook his head, and then walked into a room, intending to call Tang Hao to eat. When he opened the curtain, he smelled a strong smell of alcohol, but Tang San was used to it. He stepped over countless empty bottles and came to the simple wooden bed. He stretched out his hand and shook the middle-aged man lying on the bed, who looked decadent but still tall and strong. Dad, get up and eat. The man turned over, slowly opened his eyes and answered. Dad, Tang Liu and I will wait for you outside, Tang San finally said softly, and then walked out of the room. Outside, Tang Liu had already packed the kimchi and sat on the bench, waiting for Tang San to come out. Dad will be out soon. Seeing Tang Liu, Tang San smiled and said. Brother, do you think the traps we set caught any small animals? Tang Liu asked. I don't know. Let's go check it out later. If we catch them, we'll have meat to eat tonight, Tang San said, and sat opposite Tang Liu. At this time, Tang Hao also staggered out, sat down, picked up the porridge and drank it in one gulp. Dad, have some kimchi. Tang San picked up a piece of kimchi for Tang Hao with chopsticks. There's still a lot in the pot, drink it all, Tang Hao said him lightly, and after eating the kimchi, he drank the remaining rice porridge in the pot that Tang San had just served him. Tang Liu looked at it and was very dissatisfied, so he couldn't help but snorted lightly. Tang Liu, like Tang San, is a time traveler. The difference is that Tang Liu comes from modern China on Earth. He is a high school student who is only 15 years old. His real name is Tang Liu, Liu grave. After coming here, he caught up with his mother Yin giving birth in this life, and then he was named Tang Liu and Tang Hao. Tang Liu originally thought about whether to change his name back, but thinking that the pronunciation is the same anyway, he was too lazy to change it again. As a modern high school student, Tang Liu has naturally read the classic novel Douluo, and this is the first online novel he has read, which is considered a good introduction. Therefore, Tang Liu, who traveled through time, has some sympathy and pity for his current father Tang Hao, but more of it is a sense of regret for not being able to make up for his shortcomings, and of course there is also love between relatives. Tang Liu, who hates Tang Hao's decadent appearance, has never given Tang Hao a good look since he was old enough to remember things. But Tang Liu respects and cares for his brother Tang San. After all, in his previous life, He was also an orphan. He had no one to rely on, no relatives, and no friends. He went to high school with great difficulty. Xiao Liu, what's wrong? Tang San heard Tang Liu's hum and asked with concern. Tang San, who was also an orphan in his previous life, gained 2 relatives in this life, so he naturally cherished these 2 family relationships very much, even though Tang Hao had never taken care of the 2 brothers after Tang San could take care of himself. It's okay, Tang Liu smiled and shook his head, then glanced at Tang Hao, picked up the porridge in front of him and took a sip, and then snorted softly. Seeing this, Tang San smiled helplessly again, and said nothing. He was no longer surprised that his younger brother disliked his father. It's not that he hadn't said it to Tang Liu before, but it was useless. I'm going to sleep. You can take over the work first. I'll do it when I wake up in the afternoon. After drinking the porridge, Tang Hao wiped his mouth with his sleeve and said to Tang San, then got up and walked towards the room. Dad, at this time, Tang San hesitated for a moment, and then called Tang Hao. What's the matter? Tang Hao turned his head and looked at him impatiently, his voice cold. Seeing this, Tang San was a little afraid and said, no. Tang Liu, who was watching this scene, was annoyed and felt that the porridge in the bowl was no longer fragrant. He suddenly stood up and scolded Tang Hao, interrupting Tang San's unfinished words. Old man, are we your biological children? Brother obviously has something to ask you. Why are you so impatient? As a father, you don't care about us, but now you can't even say a word to you. Okay, Xiao Liu, don't say anything, Tang San hurriedly persuaded. No, brother, don't worry about me, I must scold him today. Tang Liu's handsome face was full of anger, glaring at Tang Hao, as if you don't give me an explanation, I will never let you go today. At this time, Tang Hao turned around and glanced at him lightly. But with just one glance, Tang Liu felt an irresistible power falling on him, and wanted to press him back to his seat. The author from the future said, can you please help me find typos and mistakes during the reading process? For example, if Ningrongrong's first and second skills are wrong, can you mark them for me so that I can find them and correct them? Thank you, Mua. Chapter 2 Then Awakening the Martial Soul. I'm your father, that's what I'm saying to you. Tang Hao replied indifferently. Tang Liu also understood Tang Hao's subtext, so he felt even more annoyed and a little aggrieved. He looked at Tang Hao stubbornly, even though beads of sweat had appeared on his forehead and his thin body had begun to tremble slightly. He just refused to sit down under the pressure and refused to yield in front of him. If you have the ability, use your pressure to crush me to death. Even if you are a titled Douluo, even if you are my father, I will not bow my head. Tang Liu's eyes conveyed such a meaning, and even if Tang Hao could not understand it accurately, he could understand it roughly. A slight smile of relief and surprise flashed across his face, which no one could see. Xiao Liu, what's wrong with you? Tang San saw Tang Liu's face flushed red, and immediately understood what was wrong, so he trotted to Tang Liu's side and reached out to support him. Coincidentally, Tang Hao also withdrew his pressure at this time, so Tang Liu's body softened, and it was all thanks to Tang San's support that he did not fall down. Xiao Liu, are you okay? Tang San asked with concern, and then looked at Tang Hao. Dad, what did you do to Xiao Liu? Tang Hao did not answer him, but asked, what do you want to say? Tang San was stunned, frowned, and was about to say something, but was stopped by Tang Liu. Brother, tell him what you wanted to say just now. Even if he tried his best to cover it up, Tang Liu's voice was still trembling slightly, and there was a sense of weakness. Tang San looked at him, hesitated for a moment, and then said to Tang Hao, can you teach me how to forge iron? After listening, Tang Hao looked at him seriously, but his tone was still cold. Why do you suddenly want to learn? In this way, I can help you get business, Tang San said, revealing part of his purpose of wanting to learn how to forge iron. Blacksmith seems to be good, Tang Hao murmured. Can you give me a word? Seeing that Tang Hao did not respond for a long time, Tang Liu suddenly became angry again. Tang Hao turned his eyes to look at Tang Liu again. He wanted to glare at him, but seeing his pale face after enduring his pressure, and thinking about the cute tremor in his voice when he was speaking, his heart softened again, so he ignored him. He suddenly looked serious and said to Tang San, Xiao San, let me ask you, what kind of blacksmith is a good blacksmith? Tang San paused, probably thinking, and then gave his answer, it should be. But before he finished speaking, Tang Liu, who he was supporting, finally couldn't hold on, rolled his eyes, and fainted. Xiao Liu, Tang San exclaimed. Tang Hao also flashed and came to Tang San's side, taking the unconscious Tang Liu from his hands. Tang San, who was concerned about his younger brother, didn't notice Tang Hao's sudden amazing speed, and looked at him and said, "Dad, what's wrong with Liu?" Tang Hao frowned, stretched out his broad and rough right palm and covered Tang Liu's lower abdomen. After a while, he used his spirit power to check Tang Liu's physical condition, and his frown relaxed. "It's okay, I was just tired and fell asleep," Tang Hao said lightly, and then carried Tang Liu to the room of Tang San and his brother. "You stay here, I have something to say to you." This sentence stopped Tang San, who wanted to follow. In the room, Tang Hao gently put Tang Liu on the relatively soft bed and covered him with a quilt. Looking at Tang Liu's facial lines that were very similar to a yin but inherited some of his toughness, Tang Hao's face rarely showed a trace of tenderness. "Why are you trying to be strong at such a young age? I don't know who you look like." He shook his head and walked outside. A few days later, it was the day of martial soul awakening. The village chief of the Holy Soul Village, Jack, took Tang San and Tang Liu and his brother to the big wooden house in the center of the village, that is, the Martial Soul Hall. This year, a total of 8 children need to awaken their martial souls, and Tang San and Tang Liu are the last 2 to arrive. "Really? For such an important matter, the old man didn't even come with us." After entering the spirit hall, Tang Liu couldn't help but complain to Tang San. Tang San patted his shoulder. "Dad still has things to do today, don't blame him." Tang Liu curled his lips and muttered, "Drinking? Or sleeping? What can he do?" His voice was very low, and Tang San didn't hear it. Soon, they stood in a row with the other 6 children. Village Chief Jack walked up and talked to a handsome young man in his 20s, his expression was respectful. Tang Liu also looked at the young man curiously. "That is, Suyanteo. Is this the Iron Suyanteo? I wonder if I am considered a changing protagonist." Tang Liu laughed at himself in his heart. After all, it would be a lie for him to say that he was not curious about the novelty of the spirit awakening. What's more, he was still a high school student in his previous life. Even though he was deeply devastated by society, he still had the second syndrome. "I don't know what kind of martial soul I will awaken. Will it be the same as my third brother's?" He looked at Suyanteo, who had already awakened the martial soul for the first child, and thought to himself. At this time, Suyanteo was already in the state of martial soul possession, and 2 halos, one white and one yellow, were pulsating around his body. "Those 2 are the spirit rings," Tang Liu secretly observed. Suyanteo, who was possessed by the martial soul, had been emitting a faint pressure from his body, but Tang Liu did not feel any discomfort, perhaps because he had experienced the baptism of Tang Hao's pressure that day beforehand. Soon, it was Tang San's turn beside him. Just like the original work, Tang San awakened the blue-silver grass, but Tang Liu, who had been standing behind Tang San, noticed that in Tang San's left hand, which was behind his back, a very dignified and heavy black light flashed. "That should be the clear sky hammer," Tang Liu said with certainty in his heart. "Blue-silver grass, a useless martial spirit?" Suyanteo shook his head and took out a crystal ball that tested spirit power. "Forget it, let's test the spirit power." Tang San did as he was asked and placed his palm on the crystal ball. The next moment, the crystal ball released a dazzling blue light. "Oh my god, it's actually innate full spirit power," Suyanteo exclaimed. "Uncle, what is innate full spirit power?" Tang San looked at Suyanteo in confusion and asked. Next, Suyanteo began to explain to Tang San what spirit power is and what innate full spirit power is. After a while, it was Tang Liu's turn to awaken the martial spirit. Tang Liu walked to the center of the magic circle formed by the 6 black stones. His face was calm. But he was actually very nervous. I don't know what will be awakened. By the way, the little girl whose martial spirit is also blue-silver grass in the original book doesn't seem to appear. Could it be because of my appearance? Is the butterfly effect starting to appear? Chapter 3. Then I discovered that my soul power was very high. While thinking about it, he also started the martial soul awakening ceremony. First of all, he felt as if his whole body was immersed in a hot spring, very comfortable. The next moment, Tang Liu felt a force coming out from his lower abdomen, and in an instant it came to his hands. He subconsciously wanted to raise his hand, but he was stopped. In the end, he only raised his left hand, and his right hand naturally drooped, without any abnormality. The blue light bloomed in the palm of his left hand, and finally grew into a young blue grass leaf. But I don't know if it's due to insufficient strength or other reasons. This grass is transparent and looks very illusory and not real at all. At the same time, at the root of the grass, there is a faint golden line, quietly flashing light. Blue-silver grass again. Su Yanteo showed obvious disappointment in his expression. It's still a useless martial soul, little guy. Let's test the soul power. What if you are also born with full soul power? Su Yanteo said with some self-mockery. Tang Liu nodded and pressed his hand on the crystal ball. To be honest, he was also very curious about what level of soul power he would have. After all, he didn't learn Zhuantiangong like Tang San. Originally, Tang San wanted to teach him everything that Tang sect had learned, but Tang Liu only asked him to learn Ghost Shadow, Crane Control and Dragon Capture, and Mysterious Jade Hand, and he only learned it superficially. Finally, he added the Purple Extreme Demon Eye that he barely learned now and then when he was in the mood to practice. As for why he didn't learn other things, and didn't continue to practice the few things Tang San taught him, it was because he was lazy. Nonsense, I finally don't have to study. Do you still want me to practice hard? Tang San was a little helpless about this, but he could only let him do it. Logically speaking, a martial spirit like Blue-Silver Grass would not have a companion soul power, but his mother was Blue-Silver Emperor, so it should still bring him some soul power. According to the plot of Douluo III, Tang Wuolin, who did not have twin martial spirits and had not awakened the Blue-Silver Emperor bloodline and the ability of the Golden Dragon King, had an innate soul power of level 3. Tang Liu estimated that his soul power was also around this value. But Tang Liu could feel that he had a second martial soul, so, conservatively speaking, he felt that his soul power should be able to reach about level 7. Thinking of this, the crystal ball in front of him lit up with a dazzling light, and it seemed that there was a trend of continuing to get brighter. Tang Liu was shocked, his expression changed subconsciously, and he hurried to stop the surge of soul power in his body, which prevented the crystal ball from continuing to get brighter and even bursting. But in just a short while, the brightness of the crystal ball was more dazzling than Tang San's at that time. Tang Liu, who was close, even heard a crisp cracking sound. No way, could it be? Tang Liu already had a guess in his mind, so he was very shocked at this moment. I don't have a golden finger system either, is it really a gifted person? Tang Liu muttered in his heart, and there was a little worry in his heart. Another innate full soul power. Su Yanteo was shocked. When did innate full soul power become so worthless? It's a pity that the martial soul is a useless martial soul Blue-Silver Grass. Su Yanteo showed a hint of regret, looking at Tang San and Tang Liu. His eyes were full of disappointment. Even a sickle would be fine. This way I can get a promotion and a raise. However, because he was too surprised, he did not find that Tang Liu's soul power was brighter than Tang San's. Okay, let's stop here. Children, you can go back. Su Yanteo shook his head, put away the crystal ball, and walked outside. Village Chief Jack talked to Su Yanteo who was going out. His expression was nervous, and then turned into disappointment. Although Tang Liu was a little lazy, he had a good memory. In addition, he recalled from time to time in the past 6 years, and he could still remember the plot of Douluo clearly, so he also remembered what they were talking about now, but he didn't care. What a joke, how can you mortals understand the power of the future God King? So, even if you are the Iron Su Yanteo, even if you are the most ruthless person in the continent Jack, the village chief who dares to scold the title Douluo, sent the God King to school, and fed carrots to the 100,000-year-old soul beast, you are still just an ordinary person. Thinking of this, Tang Liu suddenly felt a strong sense of superiority in his heart, and there was a little joy of everyone is drunk but I am sober. Then, Jack sent Tang San and Tang Liu back home and asked Tang Hao whether he wanted to send the two brothers to the Soul Master Academy. Although the Holy Soul Village only has one quota for work-study students every year, this is not the only year that a Soul Master was born, and there are still quotas for last year. Naturally, Tang Hao denied it, so old Jack and Tang Hao argued. You should know how precious this opportunity is. Maybe Zio-san and Zio-li will become superior people in the future, old Jack said in surprise. Tang Hao looked at old Jack coldly. What's the use of being superior? I only know that if Zio-san goes, no one will cook for me. As for Zio Liu, Tang Hao was suddenly stunned when he said this. It seems that Tang Liu, this little brat, is really useless. Seeing that he suddenly stopped talking, Tang Liu, who was standing aside, suddenly turned black and was about to start cursing, but at this time Tang Hao spoke again and interrupted him. Don't worry about it. Anyway, blue silver grass, what do you think the blue silver grass martial spirit can be cultivated into? It's just a useless martial spirit. Tang Hao glanced at old Jack coldly. Hearing this, Tang Liu, who was about to curse, lost his temper. Looking at Tang Hao's decadent face, he sighed secretly. Your mother's departure is really a huge blow to you. So, you will say such words now, right? Tang Liu, this time, it's rare that he softened his heart. He is also a poor man trapped by love. But it's obvious that his mother is not really dead, and she will grow back in the future. Why is he so decadent now? It's not like there is no hope. Is he afraid that he won't be able to wait until the day when his mother recovers? What about his IQ? Descendants of the Blue-Silver Emperor, with the same martial spirit, as long as their strength is improved, is there no way to accelerate the growth of a Blue-Silver Emperor? I'm afraid it's not brainless. Thinking of this, Tang Liu felt angry again, and looked at Tang Hao fiercely, with a look of regret in his eyes. Tang Hao, who was arguing with old Jack, suddenly felt a knife-like gaze falling on him. He didn't need to look to know that it was Tang Liu, that little bastard. He felt a little depressed, but he was too lazy to care. Old Jack naturally couldn't win over Tang Hao, and was angry and left. Tang San went to see him off, but in the end, old Jack still didn't give up persuading him. Chapter 4. Then comes a system. After Tang San came back, Tang Hao looked at the two brothers calmly and said, You are disappointed that you can't become spirit masters. It's okay. Can't you support us by becoming a blacksmith? Besides, didn't you promise me that you would teach me how to make farm tools? Tang San said. Then, Tang Liu spoke, staring at Tang Hao. Well, I'm disappointed, Zio Liu. Tang San looked at him in surprise. Tang Liu glanced at him, indicating that he was fine, and then looked at Tang Hao again. I'm disappointed in you. Then he didn't say anything more. Tang Hao also looked at him, his tone seemed to reveal ice. What's the use of a spirit master? Let alone a useless martial spirit, even if it is a top martial spirit, what's the use of being the most powerful spirit master? It's still just a waste. Faintly, Tang San and Tang Liu seemed to see a little sparkle in Tang Hao's eyes. Tang San ran over and held Tang Hao's hand. Dad, don't be angry, we won't be spirit masters. Zio Liu and I will always be with you, and I will always cook for you. Then, he glared at Tang Liu again. Zio Liu, stop talking, but Tang Liu ignored Tang San. He decided to warn Tang Hao today. The strongest? You are not the strongest. How do you know that the strongest spirit master is also a waste? Have you seen the scenery there? If you were the strongest, would you still be like this? Would you still be so decadent? Because it was difficult to explain, he couldn't directly talk about a yin, but this didn't stop him from beating around the bush. The strongest person should be the strongest. There is no such thing as a benevolent person who is invincible, only the invincible person is invincible. If you are invincible in the world, who dares to mess with you and take away your things? Tang Liu's expression became extremely serious at this moment. But his words angered Tang Hao, who stood up suddenly and even pushed Tang San next to him. He looked down at Tang Liu, his eyes were cold, and he suppressed his anger. What do you know? I don't understand, but I can probably guess. Tang Liu took a few steps forward, almost in front of Tang Hao, and looked up at him. You, who only knows how to escape, but won't try to work harder to move forward, old man. Tang Liu's words deeply pierced Tang Hao's heart, opening up an old scar. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and a pressure fell on Tang Liu. He was going to teach this little bastard a lesson. Under the pressure, Tang Liu's body obviously bent, and he couldn't help but groan. Dad, what are you doing? Tang San was watching from the side and exclaimed. Don't worry about it, Tang Hao snorted coldly. But Tang San wanted to say something else. Otherwise, I'll beat you too. Tang Hao turned his head and looked at him. Tang San gritted his teeth. Then you can beat me too. These two bastards, they are deliberately against me, right? Tang Hao thought depressedly, and planned to let Tang San suffer from the pressure. But at this time, Tang Liu, who was almost unable to move under his pressure, slowly raised his left hand. A blue light bloomed, and the illusory blue-silver grass leaves quietly appeared, and then grew rapidly under Tang Hao's pressure. The grass leaves almost instantly grew to the same height as Tang Hao, and then the branches and leaves spread out, wrapping Tang Liu up like a cocoon. Since this blue-silver grass is transparent, Tang Liu can still be seen inside. Moreover, Unlike ordinary blue-silver grass, there is a golden line on Tang Liu's blue-silver grass that spreads from the root and distributes on the veins of each blue-silver grass leaf, exuding a faint majesty. This is, Tang Hao looked at the clump of blue-silver grass, lost his mind for a while, and the pressure emanating from his body disappeared. He stretched out his hand and carefully touched a blade of grass, but it passed through. Exactly the same as her, he murmured. Tang Liu, who was wrapped in blue-silver grass, could also move normally at this time. He took back the blue-silver grass that wrapped himself, leaving it in the palm of his hand. This is one of my martial souls, a variant martial soul, the void blue-silver emperor. Tang Liu looked at Tang Hao and said, an auxiliary martial soul. As for why he knew this, it all started from the moment he arrived home after his martial soul awakened. At that time, a crisp voice rang in Tang Liu's mind. Yes, that's right. Ling. System repair completed, loading, it's a system. But this system is a little different. The assistant system has been activated and bound. Host, Tang Liu, the assistant system knows everything and can answer questions and solve problems. It's like an encyclopedia. We don't give out gift packs, we don't offer lotteries, we don't sell goods, and we don't support redemption. What we have is to be on call anytime, anywhere to solve any doubts and difficulties, and provide the most comprehensive information in the heavens and the worlds. The assistant system is your strongest assistant. Tang Liu, host, Tang Liu, male, age 6 soul power. 20 martial soul 1, void blue silver emperor, top level plant-based auxiliary weapon martial soul. Mutated from the blue silver emperor martial soul, it loses control and attack capabilities, but has powerful auxiliary, defensive and healing capabilities. Martial soul 2, clear sky hammer, top level attack weapon martial soul. The martial soul inherited by the direct line of the clear sky sect, the most powerful weapon martial soul in Douluo continent. Martial soul 3, unknown martial soul, unknown strength. It seems to be in a state of waiting to be awakened. Or, can it be awakened after absorbing the soul ring? The current physical strength can withstand the number of soul rings. 356 years. Overall evaluation, strong talent, weak body, need to strengthen training. This is the system that suddenly appeared. Tang Liu did not find any system interface. This is just a Baidu encyclopedia. Tang Liu, blue silver emperor Tang Hao looked dazed, his eyes full of nostalgia. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean that my brother and I can't do it, Tang Liu said. Tang Hao sat down again, his expression was full of melancholy. You said, this is one of your martial spirits? After a moment, Tang Hao looked at Tang Liu and asked. Tang Liu raised his right hand, and the condensed black light surged, gathering into a small hammer with the same black body, but with ancient patterns. This is mine. Tang Liu held the hammer handle. Second one. Before he finished speaking, he staggered as soon as he held the hammer handle, and was thrown to the ground by the hammer. Fuck, it's so heavy, Tang Liu only had time to exclaim, and then he fell face first to the ground. Tang Hao, Tang San. Tang Hao looked at Tang Liu who fell in front of him, and for some reason he suddenly felt much better. And even wanted to laugh. You deserve it, you always confront me, and now this is your retribution. Tang San still had some conscience, and hurried over to help Tang Liu, whose spirit had been collected, up. Although he also wanted to laugh when he saw his brother with a big red mark on his face. Chapter 5, The Happy Ending of Family Love, Not Surprising. Tang Liu's face darkened, and he said very depressedly, did you see it clearly? Even if you didn't see it clearly, I won't show it to you again, just look at my brother. So is his body really that weak? If I had known earlier, I would have practiced martial arts with Tang San. Tang Hao stopped laughing in his heart, and decided not to argue with this little brat. He looked at his eldest son who made him worry less and said, Zio-san, where's your martial spirit? Dad, I also have 2 martial spirits, Tang San said. Oh, Tang Hao was really surprised this time. 2 innate full spirit powers, 2 twin martial spirits. And they are both his sons. After saying that, Tang San was ready to release his martial spirits, but at this time Tang Liu refused Tang San's support first, so as not to hinder him. But as soon as Tang San's hand left him, his legs softened and he was about to fall forward again. Fortunately, this time Tang San reacted quickly and supported him in time. It seems that Tang Hao's pressure is not so easy to take, and the fall just now was really heavy. Dad, you help Zia Liu first, Tang San glanced at Tang Hao. No. Even if I, Tang Liu, fall down 100 times today, my face is swollen, and I die outside. I don't want him to help me. Tang Liu resisted with a firm look. Tang Hao's face turned black again. Tang San, Tang Hao hugged Tang Liu and restrained him in his arms to prevent him from falling again. Let go, I said. I don't want you to help me. I won't help you even if I give you the wall. I don't want it. It smells so good. Tang Hao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and he couldn't help but use some force to hold him down to prevent him from moving. Don't move, he shouted. Tang Liu, who felt a little pain, immediately became obedient. Then he pressed against Tang Hao's chest and felt the temperature of Tang Hao's body, and the faint smell of alcohol that occasionally entered his nose. Is this the embrace of a father? The feeling that he had never experienced in his previous life quietly entered his heart at this time. It seemed that Tang Liu, who was not bad, calmed down, and the reluctant look on his face faded. Xiao-san, release your martial spirit, Tang Hao said. Tang San said and then raised his hands. Blue-silver grass grew on his right hand, which was solid and did not have the golden veins on Tang Liu's grass leaves. Tang Hao looked at the small blue-silver grass and was lost in thought again. Then, Tang San's left hand also condensed into a clear sky hammer. Tang San, who had been training since childhood, was stronger than Tang Liu. Even so, Tang San's left hand holding the clear sky hammer was still slowly sinking. Okay, Xiao-san, put it away. Tang Hao took a deep breath and suppressed his excitement. Tang San nodded and took back the blue-silver grass and the clear sky hammer. At the same time, he couldn't help but be surprised, because in just a short while, most of his Zhuangtiangong internal force had been consumed. Tang Hao looked at Tang San with mixed emotions. After a long while, he slowly said, remember, in your future, you must use the hammer in your left hand to protect the grass in your right hand, forever. Tang San nodded without knowing why. Tang Hao looked at him quietly, but he couldn't help it after all, so he hugged him and held him tightly in his arms. So Tang Liu was almost squeezed to death. Oh, it's so painful, fuck you. Let me go. In the next few days, Tang Hao seemed to have finally figured something out, and agreed to let Tang San and Tang Liu go to the Soul Master Academy to study. At the same time, Tang Hao also began to teach Tang San the Chaos Cloak Hammer technique. During this period, Tang Liu tried it once out of curiosity, and ended up struggling with the forging hammer that Tang Hao usually used for casting for a full half an hour. Tang Liu's face was dark for a whole day because he couldn't lift it. Of course, he still didn't want to go to exercise. In this way, 3 months passed quietly while Tang Hao instructed Tang San to practice the Chaos Cloak Hammer technique every day, and Tang Liu dozed off. On this day, Tang San completed the production of 2 sets of sleeve arrows, and originally planned to give 1 set to Tang Liu, but was rejected by Tang Liu with a look of disgust, saying leave it to my future sister-in-law. After daily training, Tang San took Tang Liu home, but when they got home today, they unexpectedly did not find Tang Hao. However, not long after, Tang Hao came back and talked about going to school in Notting City. Tang San and Tang Liu realized that he had gone to see the village elder Old Jack. Hurry up and pack up, we will leave early tomorrow morning. The casting method I taught you can let you find a blacksmith shop in the city to be an apprentice, and your and Xiao Liu's tuition and food should be enough, Tang Hao said. After that, Tang Hao also reminded Tang San and Tang Liu not to add spirit rings to the clear sky hammer, and not to let anyone see or know the existence of the clear sky hammer. Although Tang San was a little confused, he took note of it seriously, and Tang Liu didn't know why he was a little depressed and was in a daze all day. Although he usually either slept or was in a daze. At night, in the small room of the 2 brothers. Third brother, we are leaving tomorrow. Tang Liu looked at the ceiling in the dark and said. Yes, we are leaving tomorrow. Are you looking forward to it? Tang San asked out loud. Looking forward to it? A little bit, but I'm a little reluctant to leave my dad, Tang Liu said softly. Tang San couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, we can come back every holiday. I understand the reason. But Tang Liu's voice suddenly became smaller. What if we come back and dad is gone? Huh? Xiao Liu, what did you say? Tang San didn't hear clearly. It's okay, I'll go to sleep first, Tang Liu turned over and said. Tang San felt a little weird, but he didn't doubt it, closed his eyes and went to sleep. Then, it was dawn. In the morning, Tang Liu rarely went to the hill with Tang San, but stayed at home alone. He stayed alone by the stove, carefully controlling the fire and cooking rice porridge. After a while, He got up and walked to the other side of the stove, where a pheasant was being cooked. It was a pheasant that he and Tang San had set up a trap for nearly half a year and finally caught. It's a pity that there is no seasoning at home. Tang Liu opened the pot and took a look at the color, muttering, "Ling. The host can go pick some basil and wild peppercorns. In addition, you can refer to Tang cuisine and use sour taste instead of salty taste." In the mind, the assistant system suddenly spoke. This is a good idea. I remember there are wild peppercorns and basil not far away. As for the sour taste, you can use kimchi." Thinking of this, Tang Liu couldn't help but giggle twice, and then immediately ran out of the house, and soon picked wild peppercorns and basil back, and then picked some pickled peppers from the kimchi jar and filled a bowl of kimchi water. Speaking of which, this kimchi jar was made by Tang Liu himself, because when I read the novel in my previous life, I felt that Tang San and Tang Hao's food was too bland. Even if you can't afford meat, kimchi, a delicacy that goes best with porridge, should be available. In addition, using traps to catch small animals was also proposed by Tang Liu, but now it seems that the effect is not very good. The chapter names will return to normal soon. Okay, the author thinks that the first 5 chapters of Tang Liu will be published so that readers can have a general understanding. After that, the author will be out of touch and update once a day until the college entrance examination. I hope that when I come back after the college entrance examination, I will see that I have a large number of book friends. Actually, I will not admit that I only published 5 chapters because the funny chapter names only have these 5 chapters. Chapter 6: The Day of Leaving. It is recommended that the host add nearly 1/3 of the volume of the soup to the sour water, so that the taste can be the most delicious. Wild pepper has a strong numbing taste, so it is recommended to add only 18 pieces. In addition, it is recommended that the host take the 6 most tender perilla leaves, tear each leaf into thin strips about 1 centimeter wide and 5 centimeters long by hand, and add them to the soup. Finally, stuff all the remaining perilla into the chicken belly, steam it for 15 minutes on high heat, then switch to low heat and steam for half an hour, which can make the chicken taste the most delicious. The system gave suggestions while Tang Liu followed them. Even though some steps were quite troublesome, he still did it very seriously. After finally getting everything done, Tang Liu covered the pot and exhaled slightly. After washing his hands, he walked towards Tang Hao's room. When he opened the curtain, he still smelled the strong smell of alcohol. Tang Liu frowned, but his steps did not stop. He walked to Tang Hao, who was lying on the bed with his back to him, and moved a small stool to sit down. He looked at Tang Hao's back, and spoke slowly after a long while. "Dad, I know you are not asleep." Tang Hao on the bed did not move at all. "We can only come back once a year, but when we come back, will you leave?" Tang Liu spoke again. Tang Hao's body seemed to stiffen, but Tang Liu could not see it. "I know you have something to do, Tang Liu paused for a long time, then sighed and continued, "Can you take me with you? I should be able to help." Tang Hao still did not respond. At this time, there was a faint movement outside, and Tang Liu understood that it should be Tang San who came back. Not long after, the voice of old Jack came from outside the door. "Zio-san, Zio Liu, Grandpa is here to pick you up." Then Tang San's voice sounded, "SHH, Grandpa Jack, Dad doesn't like others disturbing his sleep." Tang Liu turned his head to look in the direction of the curtain, and then turned back. "Dad, I'm leaving. Drink less alcohol, although the alcohol is useless to you. There is porridge and stewed chicken in the pot, don't forget to eat." He got up and walked towards the door. But after walking a few steps, he stopped, then turned around and rushed to Tang Hao, and hugged his shoulders. "Let's go." He immediately ran out of the room, but before lifting the curtain and going out, he raised his hand and quickly wiped his eyes. After seeing Tang Liu, Tang San asked, "Zio Liu, is Dad still sleeping?" Tang Liu's face was no longer abnormal. He smiled and said, "Yeah, he's still sleeping." "Okay, then you leave a message for Dad, tell him not to forget to eat," Tang San said. Tang Liu shook his head. "You should do it, third brother." He turned back to look at the falling curtain. "I'll forget it." "Okay." Tang San, who noticed that his brother's mood was a little wrong, nodded, and didn't say much. He took out a piece of charcoal that had not yet burned out from the stove, quickly wrote a line of words on the ground, and looked at Tang Hao's room reluctantly, and finally left with old Jack and Tang Liu. The door curtain was also lifted at this time, and Tang Hao walked out, without any sleepiness in his eyes. He walked to the door and saw old Jack and the backs of the 2 little guys. He walked back and saw the words left by Tang San. Like Tang Liu. It reminded him to take care of his body and drink less. There was porridge and stewed chicken in the pot. He rushed to the stove and swept his hand, and the two pot lids fell off. For a moment, the fragrance of rice porridge and the fresh fragrance of stewed chicken filled the shabby little house, not in city, not in college. Old Jack brought Tang San and Tang Liu to the gate of not in college, but was stopped by the gatekeeper and had an argument. Tang San naturally taught the gatekeeper a lesson, and Tang Liu watched the excitement from the side. As in the original plot, the master soon appeared and took Tang San and Tang Liu into not in college. Old Jack naturally returned to the Holy Soul Village. Similarly, the master also asked Tang San if he was willing to worship him as a teacher. After a conversation, Tang San also agreed to worship him. What about you? As the fourth twin martial soul in 100 years, are you willing to take me as your master? The master looked at Tang Liu. Tang Liu smiled. Master, I don't have twin martial souls. Hearing this, Tang San was stunned. The master also said and looked at Tang Liu with interest. Then tell me, if you don't have twin martial souls, how did you become a congenital full soul power with a blue silver grass martial soul? Tang Liu's expression seemed to be confident. My martial soul is not blue silver grass, it is a mutant martial soul, the virtual blue silver emperor. Oh? The virtual blue silver emperor? What kind of martial soul is this? The master was stunned for a moment, then said, but since it is a mutant martial soul, it is not impossible to have a congenital full soul power. Tang Liu, release your martial soul for me to see. Okay. Tang Liu first looked at Tang San, and after getting permission, he raised his left hand and released his martial soul. The blue transparent grass slowly grew out. The master looked at the golden veins on the blue-silver grass, and a sigh appeared on his face. Is this really still blue-silver grass? It actually exudes a faint imperial power. The master stretched out a finger to touch the virtual blue-silver emperor in Tang Liu's palm, but it passed through the crystal-like grass leaf. It doesn't have a physical body? No wonder, the virtual blue-silver emperor. Another powerful martial soul I haven't seen. If it's not as I expected, after your martial soul mutates into this, it should have lost the ability to attack or control, but it has auxiliary ability, right? Hearing this, Tang Liu was completely convinced in his heart. As expected, he is worthy of being the master of the first theory. He can tell the characteristics of his martial soul just by looking and touching. Yes, my virtual blue-silver emperor is an auxiliary martial soul. Since it has been seen, there is no need to hide it anymore. As for why he didn't reveal the fact that he has a twin martial soul to the master, Tang Liu has his own plan. Then, are you willing to worship me as your master? The master asked again. Tang Liu smiled. I won't take you as my master, you just need my brother. The master was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, that's true, let's go. I'll take you to the academic affairs office to register. Tang San on the side glanced at Tang Liu. He always felt that his brother seemed to have changed. Tang Liu felt Tang San's gaze and smiled bitterly in his heart. He is not a congenital full soul power, but a congenital level 20 super soul power. At present, Jin Rinxu is the only one with a congenital super soul power in the entire Douluo continent. And given his family's situation, they are definitely in a situation of fighting to the death with the spirit hall. So, he will not stay here for too long. Chapter 7 Discovering the Strange Spirit Hall. Although he held back when his spirit awakened and did not reveal the fact that he was born with super spirit power. But at that time, there was still excess spirit power entering the crystal ball. Although it would not cause the crystal ball to shatter immediately, it would definitely cause problems after a long time. And if the spirit hall is determined to investigate, it will definitely find him. It's just a matter of time. By then, if they find out that Tang Hao's spirit hall and Tang Hao's son are born with super spirit power, what will happen? The spirit hall will go crazy. And at that time, the three of them, father and son, will be in danger. This is exactly the case. At this moment, in the spirit hall of Notting City, a group of children are preparing for the spirit awakening ceremony, and what a coincidence, the one who presides over the ceremony is still Su Yunteo, and he is still using the blue crystal ball for testing spirit power. The quality of the soul masters in Notting City is much better than that in the Holy Soul Village. Among the 8 children who have awakened, 4 have awakened martial souls with companion soul power. The highest is level 5, and the martial soul is also good, which is a wind baboon. There are 2 children left, and Su Yunteo awakened them one by one. The 9th is a boy, whose martial soul is a dagger and the innate soul power is level 1. The last one is a girl, whose awakened martial soul is very good, and it is a plant-type martial soul. Not bad, let's test your soul power, Su Yanteo said, taking out the crystal ball. The girl put her hand on it, and then the crystal ball released a dazzling light. Full innate soul power, Su Yanteo widened his eyes. However, before he had time to be happy, the crystal ball in his hand snapped and broke into powder. The girl looked at Su Yanteo in panic. Su Yanteo was also stunned in place, and then looked at the girl like a monster, but his eyes were fanatical. Could it be this kid? Don't run around. I'll find someone, Su Yanteo warned, and then ran away with an excited look. Not long after, Su Yanteo came back with an old man who looked to be in his 60s or 70s and a yellow crystal ball. Master Mashino, this is the kid. Su Yanteo was very respectful in front of the old man. Mashino was also a little excited at this moment. Are you sure? Is it the innate super soul power? Not sure yet, but the crystal ball is indeed broken, Su Yanteo said. Mashino looked at the girl who looked a little timid, and then said to Su Yanteo, if it is really the innate super soul power, then your contribution is great. Maybe you will be transferred directly to the Wuhan Hall, and there will be absolutely no problem for you to become a Soul King. Thank you, Master Mashino. Su Yanteo looked very excited. Mashino waved his hand, looked at the girl gently, and said, Child, what's your name? Grandpa, my name is Mu Jing, the girl spoke weakly. Maziuno laughed and said, Don't be afraid. We are just surprised by your talent. Is my talent good? Mu Jing asked curiously. Maziuno thought that it was certain that she had full innate soul power. If she had innate super soul power, she would be a rare genius. Anyway, no matter which one, she was gifted. You have a good talent, I am sure of that, but now we want to see if your talent can be better. Maziuno laughed, and then signaled Su Yanteo to test her soul power. Little friend. Now I will test your soul power again to verify your talent, Su Yanteo said with a gentle smile. Okay, Mu Jing nodded and put her hand on the crystal ball again. This crystal ball is different from the one that was broken just now. It can test all soul powers below level 30. It is naturally the most suitable for testing innate super soul power. The crystal ball lit up again with the injection of soul power, and soon reached the level of level 10. Maziuno and Su Yanteo looked at the crystal ball expectantly. But after waiting for a long time, the light of the crystal ball did not move forward at all. Mashino sighed. It seems that it is not the innate super soul power. Then why did the crystal ball break? Su Yanteo asked hurriedly. Mashino frowned and thought for a few seconds. Generally speaking, the situation where the crystal ball that tests soul power will break is nothing more than that the soul power level tested exceeds the range that the crystal ball can withstand. But this newly awakened child's innate soul power is level 10, which is just within the maximum test range of the crystal ball, so why did it break? After thinking for a while, he said to Mu Jing, Do you have any soul power that you have not injected into the crystal ball? Mu Jing shook her head. In order to verify whether Mu Jing was lying, Mashino personally confirmed the soul power status in Mu Jing's body. Mu Jing certainly did not lie, so Mashino, who did not find the reason, let these children go back first, and then took Su Yanteo to his own office. Yanteo, have you ever caused an accident that may damage the crystal ball? Mashino looked at Su Yanteo and said seriously. Su Yanteo quickly shook his head. No, I've always been very careful. An ordinary smashing and dropping can't cause any damage to the crystal ball. Then there is only one possibility. Mashino's tone became serious. Among the children who awakened before, there must be one who is born with super soul power. But when he was testing his soul power, he suppressed the soul power and didn't let it all be injected into the crystal ball. But because it was his first awakening, he didn't have such strong control, so he still injected soul power that was slightly beyond the test range of the crystal ball. This extra soul power won't cause the crystal ball to shatter immediately, but it will still cause some damage to the crystal ball. In addition, the damage to the crystal ball increased due to repeated use, and finally it encountered this child with innate full soul power, which eventually led to the shattering of the crystal ball. After speaking, Mashino paused for a moment, as if giving Su Yanteo time to digest. Think about it carefully. How many children with soul power have you met in the past few months? Su Yanteo frowned and thought for a moment, then said, In the past few months, I have been conducting awakening ceremonies in various villages around Notting City, but there are only 5 children with soul power. If you add the 6 just now, there are a total of 11. The 6 children just now have been checked and can be ruled out. Think about whether there are any special circumstances among the 5, Mashuno said. Soul masters have excellent memories, so Su Yanteo certainly remembers Tang San and Tang Liu, 2 useless martial souls with innate full soul power. Yes, there are 2 children with innate full soul power. But they are both useless martial souls blue silver grass. Then what about the other 3? Su Yanteo shook his head. Those 3 are all innate soul power of only 1 or 2 levels, and their martial souls are also very poor. Quotation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, 300 Years of Civet Cat. So, the problem lies with the 2 children with full innate soul power. Do you still remember their names and family situations? Also, are they from the same village? Whose soul power did you test first? Mashuno asked questions one after another, all of which were very helpful in finding out the cause. I can't remember their names, but the 2 children are from the same village, both in the Holy Soul village. Moreover, they seem to be brothers. As for the order, I don't know who is the older brother and who is the younger brother, but their appearance is still easy to distinguish. One has black hair and looks ordinary. The other seems to have blue hair and is also better looking. I remember that I awakened the black-haired one first. According to what you said, the innate super soul power should be the blue-haired kid, Su Yanteo said while recalling. That's right. If the innate super soul power is the black-haired child you mentioned, then when you test a blue-haired child, the crystal ball will break directly, Mashuno said. Do you need me to go to the Holy Soul village, Master Mashuno? Su Yanteo said carefully. No need. I remember that the Holy Soul village has a quota for part-time students not in college, right? According to what you said, those 2 kids are the only 2 spirit masters in the Holy Soul village this year, and they should come directly to not in college to register for study. You can go to not in college tomorrow and find at least one of them. And you said they are 2 brothers, so maybe they enrolled together. After all, not in college can still make some concessions for such a small matter as more part-time students, Mashuno said. Yes, Su Yanteo responded. But they would not get anything in the end, because the next morning, the master took Tang San and Tang Liu to get spirit rings. Soul hunting forest. The master, Tang San and Tang Liu have been in the forest for a day and a night. Tang San already has his first spirit ring, which is the poor mandrake snake. Now, they are looking for a suitable spirit ring for Tang Liu. Before that, Tang Liu also mentioned in a relatively reasonable way that the maximum age limit of his first spirit ring was only about 356 years. In fact, after Tang San absorbed the spirit ring, Tang Liu said that according to his aura, he seemed unable to bear the spirit ring of 400 years. It was conservatively estimated that he should be able to fuse about 350 years. In addition, Tang San also told the master that Tang Liu had been weak since he was a child. When he was 3 years old, he coughed almost every day and had a fever for 3 months. This was true. In short, Tang Liu was very uncomfortable that year. In addition, his family was poor and did not have much money to buy medicine. He also did not eat well and did not have enough nutrition. Even though Tang Hao would secretly use his spirit power to help him recuperate every night that year, he was tortured by the disease for a whole year. Fortunately, Tang San had the experience of his previous life and was very good at identifying herbs. He often picked some useful herbs for Tang Liu to eat, which allowed Tang Liu to completely recover after a year. Since the Void Spirit Blue Silver Emperor is an auxiliary martial spirit, the master also asked Tang Liu what auxiliary spirit skills he wanted to focus on for the first spirit ring. Tang Liu replied that the first choice was some rare auxiliary abilities, followed by treatment, and finally the increase in attributes. The master was also very interested in Tang Liu's idea, and asked him what kind of rare auxiliary ability he wanted. After Tang Liu thought about it seriously, he gave an answer, for example, a soul skill that can prevent people from receiving some damage, or a soul skill that can make people invisible and hide their breath. Your idea has not been put into practice by any auxiliary soul master on the mainland, the master said with a smile, and, generally speaking, Soul beasts with soul skills of the effects you mentioned are either extremely rare or have a very high age. Tang Liu was a little disappointed, but the master's next words made his eyes light up again. But, I happen to know a soul beast with the ability you mentioned, and there happens to be one in this soul hunting forest that is suitable for you to absorb. Later, they kept looking for the soul beast that the master mentioned, and finally met it on the morning of the next day. See, it's the spirit cat over there. The master took Tang San and Tang Liu to hide behind a bush and pointed to a soul beast about 10 meters away from them. The spirit beast looked like an ordinary house cat, but its body was more than twice as big as a house cat, and its body was grayish-white with silver patterns. Its tail was the most peculiar, twice as long as its body, pure white, and with 3 very conspicuous bright silver vertical stripes on it. This kind of spirit beast does not have a strong attack power, and is not very aggressive, and rarely attacks people or other spirit beasts. The difference between its age is its body size, fur color, tail length, and the number of silver vertical stripes on its tail, the master explained to Tang San and Tang Liu while observing. Generally speaking, a 10-year-old spirit cat has a light yellow fur color, the same body shape as an ordinary house cat, and a tail that is only twice the body length, with only 1 vertical stripe on it. When it reaches 100 years old, the spirit cat will become larger, its fur color will turn grayish-white, and its tail will grow to twice the body length, and every 100 years, there will be 1 more vertical stripe on its tail. A 1,000-year-old civet cat will obviously grow to the size of a tiger or leopard. Its fur will turn pure white, its stripes will disappear, and its tail will grow to 3 times its body length. At this time, the vertical stripes on its tail will be more purple, and 1 vertical stripe will be added every 1,000 years. As for 10,000-year-old civet cats, there are very few of them. Once they enter the 10,000-year-old stage, their body size will shrink to the same size as a domestic cat, and their tail will also shorten, just like a domestic cat. In addition, their fur will turn black at this time, and the stripes on their tail will become ring-shaped, with a silver-black color. As for a 100,000-year-old civet cat, no one has seen it yet. The master is worthy of being a master, and he told all the obvious characteristics of the civet cat. What special abilities does the civet cat have? Is there anything Xia Aliu needs? Tang San asked. The master smiled. This civet cat is special in that its body can turn into a state of nothingness. In this state, the civet cat is very difficult to be hurt, and is almost immune to all attacks with a physical form. And it is extremely fast, difficult to catch, and extremely difficult to deal with. Moreover, although the civet cat will not take the initiative to attack, once other soul beasts or humans threaten it, it will become extremely cruel. Look, at this time, the master suddenly pointed at the civet cat, attracting the attention of Tang San and Tang Liu. Chapter 9, the first soul skill and the third martial soul. The civet cat was walking forward leisurely, heading straight for a big tree. Just as it was about to collide with a tree, it suddenly turned around and swung its tail towards the tree. Just as its tail was about to touch the trunk, its body suddenly became transparent, and then its tail penetrated the trunk without any hindrance. When its tail reached the center of the trunk, its body returned to its original state, and at this time, its tail was stuck in the trunk because of its solid body. Then, it took a light step and pulled its tail out, but it left a hole across the trunk. Through this hole, you can still see the situation on the other side of the tree. Think about it, if it rushed over with several times the speed just now, and you were the tree, what would your fate be? The master spoke at this time. Tang San's face was filled with horror. According to what you said, if the civet cat is really very fast, then wouldn't it be a dead end for the spirit master who encounters it? Yes, even though the civet cat just left a hole in the tree trunk, what if it was a human? If there was such a hole in the human body, it would probably be seriously injured on the spot, or even directly die. Fortunately, it won't attack actively. Tang Liu was also in a state of fear. You don't have to worry so much. Although the ability of the civet cat is very troublesome, it is not without weaknesses. The master glanced at the two and smiled. Although this civet cat can be virtualized, its virtualization cannot penetrate the spirit power. Therefore, if you encounter a civet cat, you only need to release the spirit power throughout the body to prevent it from passing through you. Tang San and Tang Liu suddenly realized. No wonder this civet cat has such a strong ability, but it still hasn't existed for 100,000 years, Tang Liu thought secretly. Then teacher, it's not easy for us to hurt the civet cat, right? How can we kill it and get the spirit ring? Tang San asked again. The master looked at him approvingly. Yes, the civet cat can't hurt us, but it's also difficult for us to hurt the civet cat. However, this civet cat happens to have another weakness. If we use it well, we can temporarily make it lose its ability to become a virtual being. As he spoke, the master took out a green plant from his storage soul guide. This is, Tang San looked at the plant in the master's hand and felt that it looked familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while. However, Tang Liu's mouth twitched, with an unbelievable look on his face. Catnip, the master nodded. Yes, catnip. Tang Liu rolled his eyes. Sure enough, no matter how powerful this civet cat is, it's still a cat. So can I get its friendship by holding a cat teaser? It turns out to be catnip. Tang San also remembered what the plant in the master's hand was. Catnip has a strong attraction to most cat-like soul beasts, especially civets, which have almost zero resistance to catnip. Moreover, after eating a certain amount of catnip, their ability to become virtual will be temporarily ineffective, and it is our chance. After the master finished speaking, he took out a large pile of catnip from the storage device and placed it on the ground, which made Tang San and Tang Liu's eyes twitch, and they couldn't help but think of the white radishes that were used to make Luo San pale fard in the moonlit night of the 24 bridges. The next thing was simple. Tang San first threw out a piece of catnip to attract the civet cat's attention, and then threw and led the civet cat to the pile of catnip. From beginning to end, the civet cat did not show any vigilance, and was very obediently attracted by the catnip. In fact, Tang Liu observed that when the civet cat saw the large pile of catnip, its eyes lit up. After most of the catnip was eaten, the master signaled Tang San that he could start. So Tang San activated his first soul skill, entanglement, and tied the civet cat into zhuangzi with blue silver grass. The civet cat's virtualization was also suppressed very thoroughly, and it could not escape. In the end, Tang Liu took a knife and put an end to the civet cat. However, even if it was tied up like a dumpling by the blue silver grass, even if it was unable to move due to the paralysis toxin attached to the blue silver grass, even if it was about to be killed by Tang Liu, the civet cat still persisted and wanted to take another bite of catnip. In a way, this civet cat is quite cute. As the yellow soul ring condensed on the civet cat, Tang Liu also sat cross-legged and began to pull the soul ring into himself. This fusion took a full hour. And when Tang Liu successfully fused his first soul ring, the host absorbs the first soul ring, and the third martial soul is activated and begins to awaken. The host's third martial soul awakens successfully. Host, Tang Liu, male, age 6 soul power, 23 martial soul 1, virtual spirit blue silver emperor, soul ring 1, soul skill, void guard. Specify any unit that is currently no more than 100 meters away from you, can be upgraded. To apply void guard with an effective duration of 1 minute, can be upgraded. During the effective time, the unit will not be harmed by any tangible attack, not immune to mental attacks and cold, burning and other effects attached to the attack. The effect of void guard can be removed by you at any time and immediately applied to any unit that is currently no more than 100 meters away from you, can be upgraded. After being applied, void guard is not restricted by distance. Only one void guard effect can exist at the same time. If void guard is applied to another person while one void guard is in effect, the previous void guard will immediately become invalid. If void guard is released multiple times on the same unit, the duration of void guard applied to the unit will be calculated based on the effective duration of the first void guard applied to the unit. Soul Ring 2, Clear Sky Hammer, Martial Soul 3, Hail and Magic. A strange combination and evolution of the Blue Silver Emperor and Clear Sky Hammer dual martial souls. It seems to have some of the characteristics of soul beasts and the unparalleled attack power of the Clear Sky Hammer, as well as a powerful and mysterious force that seems to come from another world. Soul Ring 1, Soul Skill, Hail and Mark. Through direct contact with the skin of the body or indirect contact in other ways, must touch the skin. Leave an undetectable and indelible mark on the opponent's body that can only be removed by you. You can use this mark to sense the position of the marked person at any time and gain a 50-meter, increased, field of vision around him. At the same time, you can also use the mark to do many unexpected things, most of which are not affected by space or distance. No soul power is consumed when marking the opponent. And there is no limit to the number of marks. Soul Ring 2, Soul Skill, Hail and Teleport. Consume a certain amount of soul power, and immediately teleport to a designated marked object within a 5-meter range. The soul power consumed increases with a distance from the target, up to 99% of the maximum soul power consumed, or immediately teleport to upgradable, marked objects to the designated location. The soul power consumed increases with a distance from you, up to 99% of the maximum soul power consumed. Each teleportation within a radius of 50 meters, upgradable, with a center as the center only consumes soul power of the first level of innate soul power. If the soul power is not enough to launch a certain teleportation, the teleportation will fail. If a teleportation consumes more than 90% of the maximum soul power, you will lose your combat ability within 1 day after the teleportation. Current physical strength can withstand soul ring years. 1,360 years. Overall evaluation: with the awakening of the third martial soul, your physical fitness has finally caught up with your talent. Ahem, it feels too watery to write like this. So when I graduate and update it, every time I include content introducing the skill, I will update an extra chapter in addition to the normal update on the same day. Let me calculate. There are still a few months left. I hope the college entrance examination will not be postponed. Also, good luck to all the senior high school students. Take online classes seriously. Chapter 10: Hao and Magic. When the third martial soul awakened, Tang Liu felt his body heat up, and then it was as if he had broken through some shackles. The soul power in his body surged in the meridians and circulated week after week. At the same time, he also heard the voice of the system and saw the following paragraphs of text that appeared on the system. When he saw the effect of his first soul skill, Tang Liu nodded secretly and felt that the effect was very good. But when he saw his third martial soul, his face turned black. First of all, let's not talk about the weird and casual name of this martial soul. What annoyed Tang Liu was that this Hao and magic was the reason why he traveled to Douluo continent. One day in his previous life, he entered a short mid-autumn festival holiday. But because he was an orphan, he had no home to return to. So he lived in the school. The problem came like this. When he returned to the dormitory as usual, he found that there was suddenly an extremely old and simple book on his bed. The cover and pages of the book were yellowed, and it looked very old. He wanted to pick up the book and read it out of curiosity, but just when his hand touched the book suddenly exploded. Of course, it was not the kind of explosion filled with smoke and fire, but an adjective to describe that the book suddenly exploded into countless powders, and then all drilled into his mouth and nose, poisoning him to death. Yes, he died of poisoning. He was poisoned by the book. And he only saw the name of the book clearly. Haolan Magic Collection. Then he traveled through time. However, he still remembered that on the cover of the book, the two words Haolan seemed to be added later, and did not match the words Magic Collection at the back. Looking at this introduction, it feels pretty cool, Tang Liu thought silently after reading the soul skill introduction. First of all, the function of the mark will not be mentioned, because he also needs to try it out before he knows what the function of the mark is. What really surprised him was the second soul skill, teleportation. For example, if he left a mark on Tang Hao, then in the full soul state, if he and Tang San met Douluo, he could immediately ignore the distance and teleport Tang Hao over, or directly take Tang San to Tang Hao regardless of the distance, and the price he needed to pay was only 99% of his soul power and a day of weakness. With such an ability, as long as he was prepared in advance, it would be almost impossible for anyone on the Douluo continent to catch him, which was unsolvable. And the conditions for marking were also extremely simple, just skin contact. At least, if you can't beat me, you can still escape, and it's unlikely that you will die, Tang Liu thought, and then opened his eyes, his blue-black eyes sparkling and extremely bright. How is it? Seeing him wake up, the master asked hurriedly. Tang Liu smiled, stood up, and released his martial soul, the void spirit Blue Silver Emperor. A blue blade of grass with golden veins slowly grew out of the palm of his left hand, and stopped after it grew about a foot long. Then, a circle of yellow spirit rings surrounded the blade of grass in his palm, and kept moving up and down. My first spirit skill is called the control of the void spirit. I can designate a person, an animal, or even an inanimate object to add the void ability of a spirit cat to it, which lasts for 1 minute, Tang Liu said. And then the spirit ring shone brightly, and activated the spirit skill. The next moment, Tang San found that a transparent blue vine slowly grew on his left arm, wrapped around his arm several times, and adhered tightly. The vine looked exactly like Tang Liu's void spirit Blue Silver Emperor. Brother San, don't hide, Tang Liu laughed, picked up a small stone and threw it at Tang San. Tang San naturally stood where he was and did not dodge, and then the three of them saw the small stone pass through Tang San and fall behind him. Tang San looked behind him in surprise. Although his body did not become transparent and ethereal like the civet cat, the stone still could not hit him. "Brother San, why don't you try to release your spirit skill now?" Tang Liu looked at Tang San with a smile. Tang San nodded, released a blue-silver grass, and then used entanglement. The blue-silver grass grew wildly around him, covering and entangling the area within a radius of 10 meters. "Then look at this," Tang Liu said as he used his knife to cut a blue-silver grass beside him. Just like the stone, Tang Liu's knife went through the blue-silver grass without hurting it at all. Seeing this, Tang San and the master were also shocked. "Your spirit skill can also work on other people's spirit skills," the master said in surprise. Tang Liu nodded. "As long as the control of the void spirit takes effect, all the abilities of this person will be attached with the effect of virtualization, but it will not affect the effect of the person's original soul skills. It's just like the blue-silver grass of third brother now. Although his blue-silver grass has also been virtualized under the effect of my soul skill, his blue-silver grass can still be entangled with others, but the attacks of the outside world on the blue-silver grass will be immune to the virtualization effect." The master's eyes were full of strange brilliance, and he nodded repeatedly. "Yes, this soul skill is very good. If you and Zio-san cooperate, then his blue-silver grass will be difficult to be destroyed by external forces, which greatly extends his control time." "You said just now that this soul skill can last for 1 minute. Tang Liu nodded. "Yes, but it can be improved in the future. However, this soul skill is a single effect, and can only be applied to one person at the same time. Fortunately, I can remove it and attach it to another person at any time, or add another one when the time is up." As he said, Tang Liu also released a control of the void spirit to the master. The vines wrapped around Tang San's left arm disappeared in an instant, and a new vine slowly grew on the master's left arm. "If that's the case, you need to grasp the timing very accurately." The master looked at the vines on his arm and said, "By the way, how is the soul power consumption?" "Not much consumption. It seems that there is no problem to release it hundreds of times," Tang Liu said. He was not bragging about this, but the control of the virtual spirit really consumed very little of his soul power. "Not bad, not bad," the master smiled and praised. "Well, this trip to the soul hunting forest ends here. We should go back." Tang San and Tang Liu nodded at the same time. Although they have learned a lot in the past 2 days, they have also been extremely hard. Not only can they not eat hot food, but they also sleep against tree trunks or on the ground at night. Tang Liu is better. He can rest his head on Tang San's thigh, but how comfortable can he be? Chapter 11, Innate Level 20. While the three were rushing back, the Wuhan Hall in Nodding City was not idle either. Although Su Yanteo did not find Tang San and Tang Liu at Nodding College, he learned from the principal that they and the master went to the soul hunting forest to hunt for spirit rings. After he reported this to Mashuno asked Su Yanteo to lead some people to wait at the exit of the soul hunting forest, and at the same time asked another person with a similar status to Su Yanteo to lead a small team to the Holy Soul Village to investigate Tang Hao. It stands to reason that the emergence of innate super soul power requires not only super talent, but also extremely noble bloodline. And now this innate super soul power actually came from an ordinary small mountain village, which made Mashuno suspicious. Moreover, according to Su Yanteo, the martial soul of this innate super soul power is a useless martial soul like blue silver grass. This is simply impossible. Mashuno guessed that either this innate super soul power has a second martial soul that is so powerful that it is abnormal, or his bloodline is extremely noble and excellent. As for the specific situation, it needs facts to prove it. It seemed that it was almost impossible for Tang Liu to continue hiding. However, just when Master, Tang San, and Tang Liu were about to reach the exit of the soul hunting forest, Tang Liu suddenly received a message from the system. "Ling. There are people from the spirit hall waiting for the three of you at the exit of the soul hunting forest. Please be careful. It is recommended that you leave immediately and let Master and Tang San cover for you." Hearing this, Tang Liu was shocked. What was supposed to come finally came. But he didn't expect it to be so fast. At that moment, he stopped. Master and Tang San turned around and looked at him in confusion. "Zio Liu, what's wrong?" Tang San looked at Tang Liu, who looked uncertain, and asked. Tang Liu seemed very hesitant, as if he was about to say something. After a moment, his expression became firm and he said, "Brother, Master, I actually have something to hide from you." Master didn't say anything, quietly waiting for his next words. Tang San also listened quietly. "Master, you guessed right, I do have more than one martial soul. I'm sorry for hiding it from you." He bowed gently to the master to express his apology. "Oh, then what is your second martial soul?" The master's eyes lit up and he became interested. "Xiao Liu's second martial soul is the same as mine, a small iron hammer," Tang San said. The master nodded secretly, thinking, sure enough, Xiao San and Xiao Liu are both that person's children. "Yes, my second martial soul is also a small iron hammer, but I won't show it to you now," Tang Liu said. "The most important thing I hid from you is that I don't actually have full innate soul power." Tang San's expression was still a little confused, not understanding why he said that. But the master seemed to have thought of something, and his face suddenly became horrified. "Innate super soul power?" The master looked at Tang Liu in doubt. Tang Liu nodded slowly. "I actually have innate level 20 super soul power." Seeing Tang Liu admit it, the master's expression became even more horrified. "Teacher, can innate soul power also exceed level 10? Tang San asked curiously at this time. He didn't have the plot advantage like Tang Liu. Nor did he understand the meaning of innate super soul power like master, so he seemed a little indifferent at this moment. Moreover, Tang Liu was his younger brother, and his younger brother was talented, so he was just very happy. Yes, under certain specific conditions, innate super soul power is possible, but it is very demanding. At present, there are only 2 innate super soul powers known in the entire continent. One is Xiao Liu, and the other should have reached the level of Soul Sect or Soul King at a very young age. Master's face became even more stiff. Tang San's face showed a look of surprise. After saying the previous sentence, Master also suddenly thought of something. If Tang San and Tang Liu were really the children of that person, then judging from the relationship between that person and the spirit hall, if Tang Liu's innate level 20 super soul power was really exposed, then Tang San and Tang Liu would almost be doomed. Thinking of this, Master's breathing became a little faster. But who would have thought that Tang Liu's next words would make Master even more horrified? Besides that, just now after I absorbed the first soul ring, I found that I seemed to have awakened another martial soul, Tang Liu said slowly. What? This time, it was Tang San and the Master who exclaimed together. The third martial soul. The Master's eyes changed when he looked at Tang Liu, and his eyes were mixed with horror, weirdness, shock and joy. Tang Liu nodded heavily. Yes, the third martial soul. After the awakening of this third martial soul, I found that I could sense the life that was hostile to me within a certain range. And now, just outside, I feel that there are more than a dozen people, all emitting hostility towards me. They should be waiting for me to come out. When you awakened the martial soul to test the soul power, did you not expose the innate super soul power? The Master asked immediately. Yes, I controlled it at that time and was not discovered immediately, Tang Liu said. Then now, the people of the Spirit Hall should have discovered that Xiao Liu has innate super soul power. The reason why they didn't come into the soul hunting forest to look for us immediately is probably because they don't know whose child Xiao San and Xiao Liu are. In addition, they probably don't know whether it is Xiao San or Xiao Liu who has innate super soul power, so they haven't taken action yet. After a few thoughts, the Master thought more about it clearly, and then said to Tang Liu, the people outside should be people from the Spirit Hall. Xiao Liu, you must not go out now. Teacher, are the people from the Spirit Hall going to harm my brother? Tang San spoke at this time, and there was already a cold murderous intent in the depths of his eyes. No matter whether he is from the Spirit Hall or any other hall, as long as he dares to harm his family, he will make the other party pay a very heavy price. Not for the time being, but it shouldn't be long. Moreover, not only Xiao Liu is in danger, but you too. The Master looked at Tang San with a serious expression. The current solution is that you and I will go out first, and let Xiao Liu stay here first. After we lead away the people from the Spirit Hall outside, Xiao Liu can come out, but won't it be dangerous to leave Xiao Liu here alone? Tang San was a little worried. Chapter 12, Start making up stories. This is already the outermost part of the soul hunting forest, and there are basically no traces of soul beasts. The only thing to worry about is whether the group of people from the Spirit Hall outside will come in to look for Xiao Liu after we leave. Once that happens, Liu will have to hide in the depths of the forest. On one side are the people from the spirit hall, and on the other side, he has to face the soul beasts that may appear at any time. That kind of situation is dangerous. The master also looked solemn. Obviously, he didn't have a good way to solve the current situation. After all, no matter what, he was only a two-ring great soul master. Don't worry about this. I have a solution. Tang Liu spoke again. Tang San and the master looked at him. My third martial soul seems to be very special. I don't need to actively hunt soul beasts to attach soul rings, Tang Liu said, and then prepared to release his third martial soul. What do you mean? The master guessed, but when he saw the two soul rings rising from Tang Liu's feet, his pupils shrank and he couldn't help but take a breath. Tang Liu's eyes lit up slightly, and the aura he exuded suddenly became ethereal, as if he was a fallen immortal. Then, two spirit rings that were slightly larger than normal spirit rings and the same blue-black color as his hair and eyes slowly rose from under his feet and moved around him. My current spirit power should be level 23, Tang Liu said. The master's eyes were completely attracted by the two spirit rings around Tang Liu that were beyond the cognition of spirit masters. Even Tang San was attracted by the beautiful and strange blue-black color of the spirit rings. Moreover, he could feel an extremely close aura from Tang Liu's spirit rings. This third martial soul of yours is definitely the first of its kind on the continent. First of all, the fact that you can produce soul rings on your own is already shocking enough, not to mention that the color of your soul rings is an unprecedented blue-black color. It's completely beyond our understanding of normal soul rings, the master said excitedly, like an avid researcher who had discovered a brand new research topic, but now is not the time to talk about this. You said you have a solution. Is it related to your third martial soul? Tang Liu nodded. Well, the first soul skill of this martial soul of mine can leave a mark on a person, and the second soul skill allows me to instantly teleport to the person I marked. Tang San's eyes lit up. If that's the case, then the teacher and I can go out first, and once it's confirmed to be safe, you can teleport directly to us. By the way, is there a distance limit for your teleportation? Tang Liu shook his head. No, it's just that if the distance is too far, once I teleport over, I will enter a weak period. But don't worry, you can go back to the academy directly, and then I'll teleport. It will take us at least 2 hours to get to school, so to be on the safe side, Liu, you can teleport after 3 hours, said the master. Okay, Tang Liu nodded. Then San, after we go out, we will act according to circumstances. The master turned to Tang San and said. Tang San nodded vigorously. After all, it was about his brother's safety. Then, Tang San took off his hidden arrow, handed it to Tang Liu, and put it on him. Use it when you are in danger. I have taught you the method. Tang Liu nodded and smiled. The master gave Tang Liu some medicine powder that could drive away soul beasts, and then took Tang San away. Of course, Tang Liu did not forget to leave marks on Tang San and the master. Brother, if the people in the spirit hall ask about me, you tell them that I was taken away by my father, Tang Liu shouted. Okay, be careful. Tang San turned around and waved to him. After getting Tang Liu's response, Tang San turned around again and walked out of the soul-hunting forest with the master. His expression suddenly became a little more solemn. At this time, Tang Liu also turned and walked towards the depths of the forest, preparing to find a place with a good view and convenient for him to escape. He could observe the movements of Master, Tang San and the people of the Spirit Hall, and escape in time when he encountered danger. After searching for a while, Tang Liu finally determined a relatively tall tree. Relying on the physical fitness of a great spirit master and the two Tang sect martial arts of controlling cranes and capturing dragons and mysterious jade hands, he quickly climbed to the top of the tree, then activated the purple extreme demon eye and looked out of the soul-hunting forest. Although Tang Liu did not practice the purple extreme demon eye as hard as Tang San, he was at least at the level of vertical observation, and it was no problem to see farther after activating it. He immediately found Tang San and Master who had just left the soul-hunting forest. Soon after, he saw a group of people wearing the uniform of the Spirit Hall, surrounding the two. The leader was Tao, who had met him once before and performed the spirit awakening for Tang San and him. Although Tang Liu could directly obtain the vision around Tang San and Master through the mark, it required him to close his eyes and concentrate. Now that he was in the soul-hunting forest, he needed to be on guard against the threat from soul beasts at all times, so he could not afford to be careless. Outside, Tao had already started talking to Tang San and Master. Master held Tang San's hand, and looked at the people from the spirit hall who stopped them without any change in his eyes. His expression was still the same, and he said lightly, I wonder what this spirit hall deacon wants to do by stopping us. Su Yuntao, who had received Ma Xianruo's instructions in advance and had some understanding of Master's background, was very respectful at this time. You are Master, right? I have heard of your great name for a long time. I am Su Yuntao. No need, I can't say I know your great name. Tell me, what do you want to talk to us about? Master looked at him and said. In fact, we came here today because we want to find this little brother Tang San for something. Although Su Yuntao was still young, he was good at observing people's words and expressions. He knew in advance that Master was accompanying Tang San to obtain soul rings today. Now that the two of them had come out of the soul hunting forest, they probably obtained soul rings. Although Tang San is young, he is probably a spirit master now, and he is only one spirit ring short of him, so he calls Tang San little brother. Even in his opinion, it will not be so easy for Tang San to reach the level of a great spirit master. The master glanced at Tang San and found that Tang San's eyes just moved away from him. He understood that Tang San had received his hint. Uncle, what do you want to talk to me about? Tang San looked at Su Yuntao, and his expression was not strange at all. Little brother, I wonder if you still remember me. Su Yuntao had a smile on his face. Tang San nodded. I still remember the spirit you awakened for me. Chapter 13, Getting By. Su Yuntao's smile became even more intense. I came here this time mainly to find you and ask about your brother's situation. We went to Notting College to find you, and the principal said that you two came to get spirit rings. His words revealed an important message to Master and Tang San. Spirit Hall knew that Tang San and Tang Liu had both registered at Notting College. So, Tang San thought of a statement based on the current situation. Master watched quietly at the side, wanting to know what kind of statement Tang San was going to use to hide it, so that he could follow the thinking and respond. Uncle, do you want to know the news about my brother? Tang San asked. Yes, that little brother with blue hair. Isn't he with you? Su Yuntao said, pretending to be curious. Tang San shook his head. No. My brother was going to come with us to get the spirit ring, but yesterday morning on the way here, we met my father and took my brother away. Su Yuntao's expression froze. Why did your father take your brother away? Doesn't your father know that Notting College has started? Speaking of this, yesterday Tang San and Tang Liu's father asked me to handle Tang Liu's withdrawal procedures. The master spoke at this time. Su Yuntao frowned slightly after hearing the master's words. The master's previous words not only told him that Tang Liu would not continue to study at Notting College, but also confirmed that Tang San's words were true. My brother has been in poor health since he was a child and has been suffering from a hidden illness. Yesterday, my father came to us and said that he found a doctor who could cure my brother and wanted to take him to see a doctor, Tang San said. So, your father took your brother to see a doctor? Su Yuntao frowned even deeper. What kind of illness? And I have to handle the withdrawal procedures? It means that they can't come back in a short time, right? Tang San nodded. At this time, the master also took over the conversation. Their father told me that he would take Tang Liu to the place where the doctor was staying temporarily, and also let Tang Liu go to school there. He didn't tell me where exactly they were going. Xiao-san, did your father tell you? Tang San shook his head. Dad said that they might not come back after they go. After my first semester is over, they will pick me up to see the doctor, and then come back to school. Sorry, little brother, can I ask what disease your brother has? Su Yuntao asked again. This time, the master spoke before Tang San. I'm a little curious too. Xiao-san, your brother shouldn't have any physical defects, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been born with full soul power. Reminded by the master, Tang San temporarily changed his words, nodded and said, yes. My brother has been weak since he was a child. Although he was cured later, he left a hidden disease, which caused him to have some mental problems. At the end of his words, Tang San revealed an expression that was difficult to speak of. Can you tell me more about it? Su Yuntao continued to ask, but then he saw Tang San's ugly expression, and immediately realized that his question was a bit too much. Sorry, if it's not convenient to say, forget it. Tang San's face was better. He shook his head and sighed. If I really want to say it, it's nothing. It's just that my brother will be in a daze from time to time, and it's difficult to concentrate his mental power. Sometimes he will be in a daze for more than half an hour, and then his mental state will be muddled, and in serious cases he will even fall into coma. After saying this, Su Yantao understood. It feels like there's something wrong with the brain. Thinking back carefully, when Tang Liu awakened his martial spirit, the other party seemed to be in a daze all the time. Okay, sorry to bother you two. However, Tang San, little brother, if you have any news about your brother, please come to the martial spirit hall and tell me, Su Yantao said, preparing to let Tang San and the master leave. If there is nothing else, we will leave first. The master nodded and said, "Goodbye, uncle." Tang San waved to Su Yantao, and then left with the master. After watching master and Tang San get on a carriage, Su Yantao immediately instructed the people around him, "You should immediately go into the soul hunting forest in groups. You don't need to go too deep. Just look around the outer areas nearby. If you see any suspicious people, bring them back to the spirit hall." Yes, after watching his men enter the forest again, Su Yantao also found a carriage and prepared to return to Nodding City. On the one hand, he naturally had to report the situation here to Master Mishuno of the Spirit Hall. On the other hand, he also wanted to follow Master and Tang San to see what was going on. Even though he had basically confirmed Tang San's words in his heart, "Teacher, Su Yantao is following." In the carriage in front, Tang San, who had quietly opened a hole in the back of the carriage with a small knife, retracted his gaze through the small hole and said to the master beside him, "Well, now it depends on whether Xia Aliu can escape." The master's expression was still solemn. In the soul hunting forest, after seeing Master and Tang San successfully deceive the people of the spirit hall, Tang Liu quickly climbed down the tree and ran towards the depths of the forest. Of course, his footsteps were very light, leaving no footprints on the ground. He also dealt with the traces he made on the trees. Similarly, he also dealt with the traces he made when he was with Master Tang San, reducing the possibility of being discovered as much as possible. Naturally, it was difficult for him, who is no more than 22 years old, to take care of every aspect. Fortunately, he had a system that could do nothing but give suggestions, so he did it carefully. The people of the Spirit Hall have believed what Tang San and Master said, and they will not go too deep into the forest when they come in to search. It is recommended that the host enter the forest for 1,000 meters and then move 1,000 meters to the east to avoid being chased by the Spirit Hall. In order to speed up the travel speed and reduce the traces left, it is recommended that the host use void spirit control. After receiving the prompt from the system, Tang Liu naturally did it, releasing his spirit and using his first spirit skill on himself. The void spirit blue silver emperor in the palm of his left hand instantly rewound and wrapped around his left arm, and then Tang Liu was no longer disturbed by the terrain and penetrated directly in a straight line. At the same time, the people of the Spirit Hall also entered the soul hunting forest. Although it was basically certain that it was impossible to find anyone inside, they still began a barely serious search based on the principle of doing their job well so that they could report back. However, they only searched a fan-shaped area with the entrance as the center and a radius of 500 meters deep into the forest, and then they withdrew and left. After receiving the safe prompt from the system, Tang Liu breathed a sigh of relief and leaned against a tree to rest. Now we just have to wait for 3 hours to pass and then teleport. Chapter 14 5,000 Years of Mandala Snake. But at this moment, before Tang Liu could catch his breath, he received another system prompt. "Ling. Please prepare for battle. A 5,800-year-old Mandragora snake is approaching, and is expected to arrive in 5 seconds. It is recommended that the host use the void spirit control immediately and teleport away." Tang Liu only had time to curse inwardly, and then release the void spirit control on himself. Almost the next second after the blue-silver emperor grass leaf rolled back, a purple figure immediately passed through him, and then stopped not far from him. Tang Liu looked at the Mandragora snake's raised head, and looked at the bulge on its head that looked like an unopened flower bud with fear. The 1,000-year-old Mandragora snake, both in speed and toxicity, is dozens of times stronger than the 100-year-old Mandragora snake that Tang San hunted. Although Tang Liu is now a level 23 cultivator, it is almost impossible to defeat this Mandragora snake with a cultivation level of nearly 6,000 years. A soul beast that is nearly 6,000 years old is already very close to the Soul Master among Soul Masters. What can Tang Liu, a great Soul Master, compare with this Soul Master? Is it the protagonist's halo? That thing is on Tang San, not on him. What's more, Tang Liu's actual combat experience is almost zero. In just a short while, the Mandragora snake attacked Tang Liu again. The speed was as fast as lightning in Tang Liu's eyes, and he had no time to react. Fortunately, in the state of virtual spirit control, he didn't have to worry too much about the attack of the Mandragora snake for the time being. Because the Mandragora snake couldn't touch him, whether it was its body or its toxins. Besides teleporting away, is there any other way? Tang Liu frowned and asked in his heart. Seeing that the Mandragora snake couldn't attack him for a while, he was not so panicked at this moment, and he didn't really want to disrupt the plan they had discussed before. The Mandragora snake next to him saw that it couldn't attack Tang Liu, and didn't make any further moves, just squatting on the side and staring at him. If the host doesn't want to leave, there is only a fight. It is recommended that the host immediately leave multiple marks around, use the condition of low soul power consumption within 100 meters to deal with the Mandragora snake, try to leave marks on the Mandragora snake as much as possible, and then teleport it to a far enough place. During this period, please remember to maintain the virtual spirit control. After successfully sending the Mandragora snake away using this method, if the host encounters a soul beast attack again, the host will basically no longer have the ability to resist, and the probability of death will exceed 80%. In addition, the virtual spirit control will expire in 15 seconds. Please calculate the time to replenish it. While reading, Tang Liu relied on the countdown in his mind to prepare to release the virtual spirit control. When there were only 2 seconds left for the virtual spirit control, he began to release the virtual spirit control on himself frantically. In this way, after 2 seconds, he could have a 1-minute virtual state again, minimizing mistakes as much as possible. Then can I use the protection of the virtual spirit control to run outside the soul hunting forest? While communicating with the system in his mind, Tang Liu also stood up and prepared to take action. The Mandragora snake next to him saw him move and immediately pounced on him, but passed through him again. Tang Liu switched to the third martial soul, Hail and Magic, and immediately left a mark on the tree trunk behind him. Although he switched to the third martial soul at this time, the effect of the virtual spirit control still existed on him. He only needed to switch back to the virtual spirit Blue Silver Emperor again when the time was almost right and release the first soul skill. It is recommended that the distance between each mark of the host should not be less than 25 meters and not more than 105 meters. The system gave a suggestion and answered his question at the same time. The people of the Martial Soul Hall have not gone far. If the host rushes out with a Mandragora snake, the probability of being discovered is more than 70%. Okay, Tang Liu glanced at the Mandragora snake not far away, calmed down his emotions, and then stepped in the ghost shadow step and ran towards a tree 50 meters away. Seeing him running, the Mandragora snake immediately caught up with him. Due to the speed difference, it caught up with Tang Liu in the blink of an eye and passed through him again. Tang Liu did not dare to neglect it. After leaving a mark on the target tree, he switched back to the Void Blue Silver Emperor and continuously released the first soul skill on himself. After another minute of void state, he began his marking journey. It can be said that he was quite careful. Since the Mandragora snake is a very patient soul beast and will not easily give up the prey it has identified, it has been following Tang Liu, attacking from time to time, although it could not hit Tang Liu. While marking the trees, Tang Liu kept talking to the Mandragora snake, although the Mandragora snake did not respond. Brother Snake, you see that neither of us can beat the other, why don't we each take a step back? You choose the east, I choose the west, and then we will move forward without looking back. Okay, although I am helpless about the current situation, I still want to thank Brother Snake for your favor and your persistence in me, but I really have no interest in you, so why bother to pester me? It's better to let go, it's better for everyone. In this way, Tang Liu almost left marks on all the trees in this area. However, his own soul power was also consumed by more than 20%. Among them, the Hail and Mark does not consume soul power when marking, and now the soul power he consumes is all due to the control of the virtual spirit. During this period, Tang Liu did not try to leave a mark on the Mandragora snake, but every time he got a little closer, the Mandragora snake would immediately dodge and attack him, and then appear in another place, and he couldn't even touch the other's tail. So after several attempts, Tang Liu had to give up temporarily. Fortunately, he did not gain nothing in such a long time. Now, he can use the void spirit control seamlessly, so he naturally gave up the tricky method before. The host has basically completed the marking, and now you can start to try to teleport. Now, it is recommended that the host teleport to 50 meters behind the Mandragora snake, After receiving the system's instructions, Tang Liu switched to the third martial soul, and then the second blue-black soul ring flashed. Almost at the same time, he disappeared in a burst of blue-black light, and almost at the same time, he appeared in a blue-black light 50 meters away. Teleport without any time gap. It was as if Tang Liu was already there. Tang Liu, who felt the teleportation effect, was also shocked. This soul skill is so strong. The Mandragora snake on the other side also discovered Tang Liu after a short period of astonishment and confusion. With a hiss, it came to Tang Liu like lightning. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. The third martial spirit is a bug. But the moment Tang Liu saw the Mandragora snake move, he decisively activated the teleportation, disappeared in the blue-black light again, and appeared in another blue-black light. The consumption of the innate first-level soul power is equivalent to no consumption. Feeling that the soul power in his body was only slightly reduced, Tang Liu's shock became more intense, and then he was ecstatic. Am I going to be invincible? At this transmission speed and soul power consumption, it will be difficult for me to be hit by other people's soul skills in the future, Tang Liu thought happily in his heart, and then his eyes changed when he looked at the Mandragora snake. Brother snake, why don't you come and test it with me? Looking at the rushing Mandragora snake, Tang Liu disappeared again in a blue-black light. Because he left marks on the surrounding trees, and the trees here are very dense, so in theory, he can appear anywhere in this area at any time. So, next, the blue-black light in the woods flashed around the Mandragora snake, and Tang Liu's figure was almost invisible. Since the Mandragora snake was also very fast, Tang Liu had to start the next one almost every time he teleported, which caused the flashing light. About 5 minutes later, Tang Liu teleported again and distanced himself from the Mandragora snake. In the past few minutes, he was familiar with the operation of teleportation, so he no longer activated the spirit control, and could avoid the Mandragora snake's attack by teleporting alone. This won't work. I can't touch it at all, Tang Liu muttered as he teleported again and distanced himself from the Mandragora snake that rushed over. He also thought about walking farther away first, luring the Mandragora snake over, and then teleporting back, but the system rejected it with the words the Mandragora snake has a keen sense of smell. Unless the host moves more than 1,000 meters, the Mandragora snake can still find it. In addition, the host's current teleportation of more than 1,000 meters will consume 90% of the maximum soul power, and the host will enter a weak period afterwards. It is recommended that the host activate the Void Spirit Guard and allow the Mandragora snake to pass through the body, and try to use the Shaolin mark. The system's words made Tang Liu stun for a moment, and he almost didn't avoid the attack of the Mandragora snake. You mean, I want to mark it when it is passed through by the Mandragora snake? Yes, Tang Liu's eyes lit up. Yes, the premise of marking is skin contact, but if the Mandragora snake has penetrated itself, then can it be considered that skin contact has occurred? Why didn't you say it earlier? Tang Liu began to complain about the system. The host didn't ask. In addition, it is best for the host to try these techniques on his own, the system replied. Tang Liu, but the system also made sense, so he stopped arguing with the system. At this moment, he took advantage of the gap before the Mandragora snake rushed over, immediately added a Void Spirit Guard for himself, and then stood there waiting for the Mandragora snake to come over. Come here, brother snake, let me give you a mark. He waved at the Mandragora snake opposite and shouted loudly. The next second after hearing his shout, the Mandragora snake rushed towards him. Tang Liu, who had already switched to the third martial soul and was ready, kept trying to release the first soul skill. Then, at the moment when the Mandragora snake passed through his body, the first circle of blue-black soul ring light flashed quietly. The mark was successful. However, due to the undetectable characteristics of the Shaolin mark, the Mandragora snake did not move at all. After passing through Tang Liu's body, it coiled up again and stared at Tang Liu unmoved. Now, please choose whether to send the Mandragora snake away, the system's voice sounded again. Wait a moment, I think I should get familiar with the power of the mark first, Tang Liu said in his heart, and at the same time walked under a tree and sat cross-legged. During this period, The mandragora snake naturally attacked him again because of his actions. But because of the control of the virtual spirit, Tang Liu was immune. Previously, the system's words woke him up. For the effectiveness of soul skills and the techniques of using them, it is best to explore and familiarize yourself. In addition, the system's description of his Haolin mark indicated that he could do many unexpected things through the mark, and he was also very curious about what this so-called unexpected thing was. Now, there is a marked mandrake snake and hundreds of marked trees for him to experiment with. In addition, he only needs to replenish himself with a relatively safe state of void spirit from time to time, so why not take this opportunity to test the effect of the mark? Tang Liu closed his eyes, and then his martial soul switched to the Haolin spell, silently sensing the power of the Haolin mark. Of course, he did not forget to let the system remind himself when the void spirit was about to expire. After his mind was immersed, Tang Liu felt a slight dizziness in his mind, and at the same time, a feeling of withdrawal and flying followed. It was a bit like watching the scenery below gradually getting smaller while sitting on an airplane. Tang Liu found that dozens of blue-black football-sized balls of light appeared around his dark vision. As his vision rose, these blue-black balls of light gradually became smaller, and finally became like stars scattered in the night sky. Tang Liu found that he seemed to have vision again at this time. This vision was the dark sky and the blue-black stars scattered in the sky. And he was clearly closing his eyes now. Turning his eyes slightly, Tang Liu saw that in the distance of a dense starlight, there were two stars close together moving slowly, and the speed was almost undetectable. That should be the third brother and the master. He thought so. Then, he realized that his eyes, or consciousness, were approaching the two lonely stars at a rapid speed. The two stars gradually became larger in his eyes, and the light became dazzling. Then, when his consciousness fell on the top of the two stars, the surroundings suddenly became brighter and restored to light. The surroundings looked like the interior space of a carriage. A middle-aged man and a 6-year-old boy sat next to each other on the seat. They looked a little solemn and worried. They were naturally Master and Tang San. Is this the field of view obtained by the mark? At this time, Tang Liu was watching Tang San and Master from a god's perspective. Because of the obstruction of the carriage, he could only see the situation in the carriage. However, if he wanted, he could raise his perspective a little bit and see the situation within 50 meters around him. Therefore, he also noticed the carriage behind Tang San and Master. Chapter 16 Haolin Mark. Tang Liu, who had witnessed the situation outside the soul-hunting forest, naturally knew that Su Yantao was sitting inside. Since there was still a persistent snake to deal with, Tang Liu's consciousness did not stay here for too long. The perspective continued to rise again, and at the same time, the surroundings gradually fell into darkness as the perspective rose, while Master and Tang San were lit up with blue-black light. Finally, Master and Tang San's figures disappeared in the darkness, but the blue-black stars remained. Returning to the star-filled side again, this time, Tang Liu's consciousness returned, not falling on any star. Those blue-black light balls were scattered around him, and there seemed to be a faint connection between them. It felt like these light balls could be annihilated and destroyed according to his will. And those objects attached to the light balls seemed to be controlled and controlled. Even toyed with. Tang Liu opened his eyes. The vision was bright, but at this time, the surrounding tree trunks and the snake in front of him were faintly emitting a blue-black light. That was the power of the Haolin mark. The next moment, the blue-black light around him disappeared rapidly, and only the blue-black light on the snake remained in his eyes, and it was gradually getting brighter. The body of the mandragora snake seemed to become illusory, and the blue-black light in its body became dazzling, and finally turned into a complex, mysterious, and ancient rune. Haolin mark. Looking at the mysterious rune, everything on the mandragora snake became extremely clear in Tang Liu's mind. The vague thoughts in its brain, the flow of blood in its veins, the wriggling of its muscles, the rhythm of its scales, and the surging of its soul power were all clear. Moreover, as if with a thought, he could make its blood flow backwards, its muscles stiffen, its scales fall off, and its soul power stagnate. At this moment, in Tang Liu's consciousness, the mandragora snake seemed to have become a toy that he could play with at will. Even if he wanted, he could directly make this toy explode on the spot. He subconsciously raised his right hand and aimed at the mandragora snake from a distance. Seeing his movements, the mandragora snake rushed up again. However, its originally swift movement slowed down in Tang Liu's eyes, and it seemed to be still. His blue-black eyes lit up at this moment, emitting the same blue-black light, which was extremely strange and had a very strange beauty. The next moment, the mandragora snake stopped and strangely stopped in mid-air. As if the space was stagnant, the mandragora snake's body of more than 10 meters was abruptly still. No, it was still struggling, because its body was twisting slightly, but the amplitude was not obvious. Its eyes also revealed a look of panic and even fear, which was indeed a rare emotion for a cruel and brutal soul beast like the mandragora snake. Tang Liu's expression turned pale at a very fast speed, but the blue-black light released by his eyes became stronger. He closed his palm and clenched his fist. Then, a purple light began to bloom from the body of the mandragora snake. That was its soul power. Its body surface showed broken mirror-like lines, and the purple light shone through these gaps. The next moment, the mandragora snake was broken. In the burst of rich purple light, it was broken. The broken meat was scattered all over the ground. And the blood was splashed 3 feet. A 5,800-year-old soul beast died just like that. Even though it died so easily and casually, it was still a snake soul beast that had cultivated for 5,800 years. The way it died looked simple, but the power of death was still not simple. Just after the mandragora snake was cut into pieces of meat all over the ground by its own soul power, its runaway soul power exploded. The surging purple light almost came to Tang Liu, whose face was as pale as gold paper, in the blink of an eye. 3 hours was definitely not a short time. When the carriage arrived at Notting College, the master brought Tang San to his office. Su Yanteo saw that they returned to Notting College and did not follow them anymore. He asked the driver to take him to the spirit hall. On the other side, Tang San and master were quietly waiting for Tang Liu in the office. As they did not know whether Tang Liu was safe or not, neither of them spoke. The atmosphere was very solemn for a while. This wait lasted for an hour. Master's calculation was correct. It took them 2 hours to return to Notting College from the soul-hunting forest, and Tang Liu appeared in a blue-black light in the 3rd hour. However, his face was extremely pale at this moment, without the slightest blood color. Moreover, his breath was extremely weak, as if he would die in the next moment. Tang San supported the shaky Tang Liu in time. "Xiao Liu, are you okay?" Tang San asked with concern. Tang Liu shook his head, forced a smile, and said, "It's okay, it's just that the distance of the teleportation is a little far, and the spirit power is exhausted." Tang San breathed a sigh of relief. "You were in the forest, you didn't encounter any danger, right?" Tang Liu shook his head. "Those people from the spirit hall didn't find me. I went a little deeper into the forest, and then calculated the time and teleported back. Since you are back safely, it's good. But, Xiao Liu, now you can't stay in Notting College. What do you want to do?" The master's expression was also relieved a lot, and he said. Tang Liu first bowed to the master with Tang San's support, and said, "Master, thank you." A smile and relief flashed in the master's eyes, and he didn't say anything, quietly waiting for his next words. "I plan to rest first, recover my spirit power, and then at night, I will rush back to the Holy Spirit Village under the cover of night," Tang Liu said. "Xiao Liu, do you want to go back to find your father?" Tang San asked. "Yes," Tang Liu nodded, and at the same time looked at the master meaningfully. The master understood. Indeed, now Xiao Liu is safest only by staying with that person. "Okay, you stay here to recover your spirit power, I'll go and help you prepare," the master said, and then walked out of the office. "Xiao Liu, I'll go back with you tonight." Tang San was still a little worried about Tang Liu. "No, brother, if you go back with me, if you are discovered, won't you be exposed? Now, you just need to stay here and study hard, I will be fine. After all, Dad is at home," Tang Liu said with a smile on his face. Tang San nodded, helped Tang Liu and let him sit on a chair. "By the way, I'll return the sleeve arrow to you." Tang Liu took off the sleeve arrow from his wrist and handed it back to Tang San. Chapter 17 Farewell. Why don't you take it with you? If you encounter danger on the road, you can also protect yourself. Tang San grabbed the hidden arrow and hesitated. "Don't worry, brother, if you encounter irresistible danger, I will teleport back," Tang Liu smiled and said, leaving a mark on the chair under him. "If you encounter irresistible danger, I will teleport here. Master is here and will find me in time. Don't worry, I will be fine." While speaking, Tang Liu also pulled his legs to sit cross-legged on the chair, and made a meditation posture to recover his soul power. "By the way, brother, Don't you go to see Xiao Wu and the others." Tang Liu closed his eyes for a while and opened them again, saying to Tang San. Seeing Tang San's hesitant look, he knew that he was worried about him, and then smiled. "Oh, I said I'm fine. Isn't it interesting to watch me practice here? Go find Xiao Wu quickly. What if they are in trouble?" He remembered that the part-time students were bullied by those ordinary students, but he didn't know if there was a time difference. After all, they stayed in the soul-hunting forest for 2 days. Tang San hesitated for a long time before he nodded and left the office. The sound of the door closing rang out, and the smile on Tang Liu's face slowly faded. He stopped meditating because he had never learned how to practice. How could he recover his soul power? He closed his eyes and immersed himself in the dark night sky again. The blue-black stars were scattered. In the distant sky, there was a dense mass of stars, but around him were 4 lonely stars. One was under him, and the other 2 were moving slowly in 2 different directions. There was also a spirit hall. That's what happened. Su Yantao reported everything he had experienced to Mashuno in full. After listening, Mashuno squinted his eyes slightly and didn't speak, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, he sighed and said, "That's it. Aren't you going to continue investigating, Master Mashuno?" Su Yantao asked respectfully. "No need. Although some parts of this matter cannot stand up to scrutiny, according to what you said, the child who is suspected to have innate super soul power has a brain problem, and it sounds like it is quite serious. Such a person, even if he becomes powerful in the future, cannot be used by our Wuhan Hall. Although he knows how to hide his strength when he awakens, it shows that this child is not weak in intelligence. However, brain diseases are the most difficult to treat, and it is still a question whether he can continue to live. So, let's leave it at that. You go to the Holy Soul Village now and see if you can call back the people you sent in advance," Ma Xianru said lightly. "Yes," Su Yantao responded and then retreated. It seems that the matter of Tang Liu's innate super soul power seems to have been resolved. Su Yantao, who received Ma Xianruo's order, immediately rode off on horseback. Of course, he was not riding an ordinary horse, but a trained 10-year soul beast, the chasing wind horse. The chasing wind horse has no other specialties, but it runs very fast, otherwise Su Yantao would not be able to catch up with the Wuhan Hall team that went to the Holy Soul Village a few hours in advance. Su Yantao walked nearly half the distance from Nodding City to Holy Soul Village in 1 hour, stopped the Spirit Hall team, and called them back. At this moment, it was exactly the moment when Tang Liu returned to Nodding College. The sun sank in the sky, and then the sky gradually darkened and entered the night. Tang Liu wore a black robe, with a hood covering most of his face, and then quietly walked out of the back door of Nodding College. In order to prevent being seen, Master and Tang San did not come out to see him off. They just said goodbye to each other in the office, and then Tang Liu left. Taking advantage of the night, it was a good time to leave. After leaving Nodding College, Tang Liu was not in a hurry to leave. He walked towards the densely populated areas with a clear purpose, and finally stopped in a dark alley. He took off his hood, first looked around, and after confirming that there was no one around, he spoke in a low voice. "Dad, are you there?" Silently, there was another person behind Tang Liu. Tang Liu felt a black robe on his body blown by the sudden strong wind. Turning around, he saw a tall figure in the same black robe and was startled. The figure suddenly reached out and covered Tang Liu's mouth, stopping his scream. Feeling the warmth on his palm, Tang Liu breathed a sigh of relief, then bypassed the hand covering his mouth and hugged the figure's waist. The dark clouds in the sky also floated away at this moment, and the obscured moon immediately emitted light. Under the moonlight, the figure's unshaven beard, decadent but still handsome face became clear. It was Tang Hao. Being suddenly hugged by Tang Liu, he froze, and then reached out and gently patted Tang Liu on the back. "Let's go," he said lightly, then picked up Tang Liu and flew up at a very fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he reached a height of 1,000 meters and flew towards the direction of the Holy Soul Village at a very fast speed. Soul power penetrated his body, forming an invisible barrier to protect Tang Liu, resisting the strong wind generated by high-speed flight, as well as the icy cold in the sky. As for why Tang Hao appeared, it had to start from a few days ago, when Tang San and Tang Liu left the Holy Soul Village. Tang Hao drank the porridge in the pot that had not yet been boiled again without stopping, holding the edge of the iron pot with both hands, regardless of the high temperature coming from the pot. Bang! The iron pot was smashed down by him, making a dull sound. He wiped his mouth fiercely, but at this time, due to the excessive movement, a small piece of white paper slowly fell from the clothes on his shoulders. Tang Hao reacted quickly, stretched out his hand and grabbed the paper that had not yet fallen to the ground. Opening it, there was a line of small characters on it, written very neatly and beautifully. There were not many characters in that line. Tang Hao glanced and read it all, and then his expression changed drastically. His figure flashed, and the whole person disappeared in the house. In another pot, there was a pheasant stew that no one cared about. A piece of white paper slowly fell to the ground where Tang Hao had been standing. On it was written a sentence: "Dad, I actually have an innate level 20 spirit power, and the people in the spirit hall seem to have discovered it." The signature was Tang Liu. However, a few seconds later, Tang Hao came back again, and this time he took away the pot and the chicken, as well as the small note on the ground. The firewood in the stove was also blown out by the strong wind he brought. He disappeared into the house again, following Tang San, Tang Liu and old Jack from a distance. Of course, he was in the air. Chapter 18. Tang Hao is at a loss. He had been watching the two brothers from the sky beside Tang San and Tang Liu. Naturally, he saw Tang San worship Gang, whom he had met several times, as his master. And he actually knelt down to him. Naturally, he also saw Master taking Tang San and Tang Liu to the soul hunting forest to obtain spirit rings. Naturally, he saw Tang San kill the 100-year-old mandragora snake alone. Naturally, he also saw Tang Liu obtain the first spirit ring, and saw that Tang Liu already had 2/3 spirits with spirit rings beyond the cognition of all spirit masters. Naturally, he also saw the spirit whole team chasing to the soul hunting forest. In the air, he had been paying close attention to the situation below. After seeing Tang San and Master successfully fool Su Yongtao, he was relieved. And then, he began to worry about Tang Liu again. But Tang Liu really surprised him. This kid handled the traces like an experienced veteran. But perhaps due to the physical limitations of age or lack of time, there were still some flaws in the handling of some traces, so he still helped. After seeing Tang Liu successfully evade the spirit hall's people, he was relieved again, but not long after, a 5,000-year-old mandragora snake rushed out and attacked Tang Liu. Knowing that his youngest son was an auxiliary spirit master, and not knowing the actual combat power of his youngest son's third spirit, Tang Hao's heart almost rose to his throat, and he was about to rush out and smash the snake to death with a hammer. But Tang Liu's response made him stop again. Seeing that Tang Liu was temporarily not afraid of the mandragora snake under the effect of his first spirit skill, Tang Hao also calmed down. He also wanted to see how Tang Liu would deal with this mandragora snake. Although in his opinion, Tang Liu, who was only a great spirit master, could not defeat the mandragora snake with a spirit master's cultivation, it should still be possible to escape, not to mention that he was watching from the side. What could happen? So later, he was blinded by Tang Liu's operation. What is that? Instant teleportation? I have never seen anyone's instant teleportation spirit skill be used so seamlessly. Doesn't it consume spirit power? Moreover, what shocked Tang Hao was that Tang Liu's teleportation speed was too fast. Several times, Tang Liu kept teleporting around the mandragora snake. In Tang Hao's eyes, at that moment, the mandragora snake was surrounded by Tang Liu, as if he suddenly had a dozen little sons. Tang Hao was speechless. After that, Tang Hao saw Tang Liu stop teleporting, and after adding the first soul skill to himself, he walked to the side and sat down. It seemed that he was going to practice. But not long after, Tang Hao was furious. Because he saw Tang Liu raised one hand, then clenched his fist, and the mandragora snake broke. In the end, it exploded. Fortunately, although Tang Hao was surprised, he still did not forget to save Tang Liu in the soul power explosion. The purple light exuding the breath of death came to Tang Liu in an instant. Although Tang Liu's soul power was almost overdrawn, his consciousness was very clear. Seeing the purple light approaching, he had no way. Because of the overdrawn soul power, he couldn't even use teleportation now. It was also the first time that he felt how close death was to him. Although he was also poisoned to death by the cheating Haolan magic in his previous life. The feeling he had that time was completely different from now, or rather, he didn't feel anything at all that time. And now, he seemed to feel that his vitality was like water in his palm, rapidly fading away. Am I going to die? Tang Liu's brain was blank, with only this sentence in his mind, and he had no time to think about anything else. But in the blink of an eye, he found that the purple light was far away from him, and the originally strong purple light was now like a weak light. His thoughts were still dull, but not long after, Tang Liu found himself being held in someone's arms. Turning his head stiffly, he saw the other person's always cold expression. Another 2 seconds later, Tang Liu's brain, which had been frozen, resumed functioning, and then, a feeling of grievance and fear rushed into his heart. Tears instantly rushed out of his eyes. "Why did you come just now?" he cried and hugged the man's neck. Who else could that man be but Tang Hao? After all, Tang Liu was just a child in his teens. In his previous life, although he was a little precocious, when had he ever faced the thrill of life and death? If he was still alone in this life like in his previous life, he would only become more mature after surviving such a fatal crisis, and would be more calm the next time he encountered a fatal crisis. How could he be so out of control? In addition, he had been dealing with a mandrake snake whose strength far exceeded his own. Although he acted very relaxed, it was impossible for him to say that he was not nervous or afraid in his heart, because if he was not careful, he would die. But the difference was that in this life, he had a father, a brother, and a mother who was reading the resurrection bar, which made his originally lonely and cold heart feel a little warm, and finally let him truly experience the feeling of having someone to rely on and depend on. Therefore, the moment he saw Tang Hao, he felt wronged, and then he cried in front of Tang Hao without worry, and said, "Why did you come now? Only after experiencing the taste of not having, will he become like this after getting it? This is human, a complicated person." Looking at Tang Liu, who burst into tears and hugged him in his arms, Tang Hao's cold expression froze, and he suddenly felt a little flustered. Indeed, Tang Hao was a very incompetent and incomplete father. Tang San and Tang Liu both traveled through time and space, and have never cried since they were born. Needless to say, Tang San was an adult in his previous life. And Tang Liu was also a 15-year-old high school student with a precocious psychological age. In his original world, even ordinary high school students of the same age would not cry at the age of 15, let alone an orphan like him who had no one to rely on. Therefore, Tang Hao had never experienced the days of coaxing crying children, and had no experience to talk about this matter. So now, Tang Hao felt very confused, panicked, a little distressed, and a little helpless. What should he do? Now there are only these 4 words in his mind. So, he, a grown man, just stood in the forest in a daze, his face stiff, holding a crying child in his arms. If someone saw him, they would definitely think he was a human trafficker. Well, I felt great when I wrote these plots, but why do I feel a little ashamed when I check for typos in each chapter and reread it before posting it? Greek letter Omega. Chapter 19. After returning home. Fortunately, Tang Liu was just venting his emotions, and he recovered quickly and gradually stopped crying. Then, because of the overdrawn soul power and the relaxation of the tension in his heart, he leaned half of his face on Tang Hao's shoulder and fell asleep. He slept for nearly 3 hours. After waking up, Tang Liu found that Tang Hao had sent him to not in college. They didn't say much. After Tang Liu left a mark on Tang Hao, he was teleported to the master's office. Of course, there are some things that Tang San can't know now, so he concealed Tang Hao's existence. The flying speed of the tidal Douluo is extremely terrifying, and it is not much worse than Tang Liu's supersonic aircraft in his previous life. What's more, Tang Hao is still a level 95 super Douluo. Of course, the soul masters on the Douluo continent have not yet cultivated soul cores, so there is no distinction between super Douluo and extreme Douluo. In less than half an hour, Tang Hao flew a distance that would take half a day to walk, and finally landed in their dilapidated house in the Holy Soul Village. Tang Hao walked into the house without saying a word, and Tang Liu followed him silently. After entering the familiar wooden house, Tang Liu felt that his uneasy heart suddenly calmed down, and he relaxed. "I'm going to sleep first," Tang Liu said, and walked towards his and Tang San's room. "Wait a minute," Tang Hao spoke. So Tang Liu stopped, turned around and looked at Tang Hao, who had pulled a chair and sat down. "Anything else?" Tang Hao looked at him, and then said, "Have you thought about what to do in the future?" Tang Liu nodded and said calmly, "Yes, I have thought about it, I will follow you." "No," Tang Hao refused without thinking. Tang Liu looked at him sideways, and the meaning revealed in his eyes was very clear: "You have no room for refusal." Tang Hao understood, so he frowned and said, "You can't keep up with me, and you can't find me." Hearing this, Tang Liu smiled immediately, and his handsome face and smile looked very charming for a while. In a trance, Tang Hao seemed to see the shadow of a yin in him. "You can try and see if I can find you," Tang Liu said with a smile, and then 2 circles of blue-black spirit rings rose from under his feet. The second circle of spirit rings shone, and Tang Liu instantly appeared in front of Tang Hao, looking straight into his eyes. "No matter where you are in this world, as long as my spirit power is enough, I can appear beside you immediately." As he said that, he couldn't help but reveal a hint of pride in his blue-black eyes. After a long while, Tang Hao spoke, and his tone was tainted with a little helplessness. "You are still too weak now. If you follow me, I can't guarantee your safety." "Really?" Tang Liu said, and then, for some unknown reason, he sat on his lap, and then hugged his neck, like 2 brothers. "It doesn't matter, if you meet someone you can't beat, I can take you with me." The second blue-black spirit ring around him shone again, and then Tang Liu and Tang Hao disappeared in a blue-black light at the same time, and then appeared where Tang Liu had stood before. There was a mark he left quietly. Since he killed the Mandragora snake with the power of the mark, Tang Liu found that his understanding of the Shaolin mark had become much deeper. For example, now he can do the indirect contact through other means described in the system to leave a mark. For example, he can leave a mark on the chair that Tang Hao just sat on, and then after Tang Hao sat on it, as long as any part of Tang Hao's skin came into contact with the chair, Tang Liu can directly transfer the mark to Tang Hao. When he entered the room, he left the Shaolin mark in his shoes through the contact between the soles of his feet and his shoes, and then transferred it to the ground, which also satisfied the indirect contact of the skin. Therefore, he can now teleport here with Tang Hao, and only consume the soul power of the first level of innate soul power. Tang Hao was surprised. He originally had a high opinion of Tang Liu's soul skill, but now it seems that he still underestimated Tang Liu's soul skill. "Can you teleport with others?" he said. "Well, it's no big deal. No matter how dangerous it is, I can take you away and make those who want to harm us unable to catch up," Tang Liu said, while putting himself down from Tang Hao. Because Tang Hao changed from sitting to standing after the teleportation, he was now hanging on Tang Hao. Tang Liu, who was less than 1 meter tall, jumped from Tang Hao, who was nearly 2 meters tall, and almost fell down because he couldn't stand firmly. Fortunately, he grabbed Tang Hao's hand in time. Tang Hao pulled him back with a little force. "Now, can I follow you?" Tang Liu looked up at him and said. Tang Hao's expression froze, and then he spoke lightly. "What level of soul power are you now?" "Level 24. Yes, after fighting with the Mandragora snake, Tang Liu's soul power has increased by 1 level. If you can break through level 30 within half a year, I will allow you to follow me." Tang Liu blinked his eyes, a hint of deep meaning on his face. "Do you mean what you said?" Tang Hao nodded. "Yes, then you won't leave suddenly in the next half year." Tang Hao hesitated for a long time. "No." Tang Liu had an expression of "I knew it" on his face, then turned and walked back to the room. "I'm going to practice," he said without looking back. After Tang Liu opened the curtain of the room and walked in, Tang Hao's eyes revealed a complicated look. It seems that his youngest son's talent is really amazing, at least better than him. Even Tang San can compare. After all, it is an unprecedented 3-life martial spirit on the continent. The soul skills of the 3rd martial spirit are so extraordinary. Thinking of Tang Liu's soul skills, Tang Hao couldn't help but fall into thought again. If Xiao Liu had this ability at that time, or if he had this ability, a yin wouldn't be able to leave. For a long time, he shook his head in self-mockery. "What are you thinking about?" At that time, Xiao San and Xiao Liu were just newborn babies. Speaking of which, at that time, he was still holding Xiao San in one hand, and Xiao Liu was tied up behind him with the vines that Yin had separated. The remaining right hand wielded the clear sky hammer to fight against several titled Douluo, Soul Douluo, and Soul Saints in the Spirit Hall. Thinking of this, Tang Hao had a bitter look on his lips. But at this time, Tang Liu lifted a corner of the door curtain again, poked his head out and said, "Dad, I haven't learned the method of meditation. How can I cultivate soul power?" Tang Hao, after a moment, he sighed and walked towards Tang Liu's room. "Come on, I'll teach you." Well, the setting of this book may combine the settings of the 3 books of Douluo I, Douluo II, and Douluo III. Speaking of which, the only one I seem to have finished is Douluo II. In addition, this kind of plot still looks so embarrassing. Greek letter omega? I always feel like I'm writing a book, but it's impossible to change it. I've already accumulated 200,000 or 300,000 words to publish. Chapter 20, As a Bug. You must also practice bug. In the room, Tang Hao asked Tang Liu to sit cross-legged on the bed, and then he released a small amount of soul power into Tang Liu's body. He first controlled his soul power to run through Tang Liu's meridians for a week, and then he left him alone and let him practice on his own. Fortunately, he also knew that his son could not be careless, so he watched from the side, always paying attention to the situation in Tang Liu's body, to prevent him from going to the wrong meridians and causing problems with his soul power and going crazy. Although Tang Liu had a good memory, the meridians in his body were too complicated, and the meditation technique that Tang Hao taught him also involved a wide range of areas, so there were mistakes in the first few times. Fortunately, Tang Hao immediately discovered it and asked Tang Liu to correct it. In this way, when Tang Liu stumbled and let the soul power run in his body for a week, he entered the state of meditation. Seeing this, Tang Hao also nodded, with a look of satisfaction on his face. Liu really gave him a lot of surprises. Thinking back to the first time he practiced soul power, he also let the soul power run through his body for 10 weeks before it became smooth and entered the state of meditation. But now, Tang Liu entered into a state of meditation after only one time, which really surprised and delighted him. At the same time, there was also a faint sense of melancholy. It seemed that the hatred between their family and the spirit wall could be avenged by Tang San and Liu. Tang Hao sat cross-legged beside Tang Liu's bed and meditated silently. Although it was almost impossible to have problems after entering into a state of meditation, it was better for him to stay with Tang Liu tonight for the sake of insurance. At the same time, Tang Liu, who was in a state of meditation, encountered a small problem. It can't be said to be troublesome, because his mind is now completely immersed in controlling the operation of soul power, and he can't feel anything else. It was at this time that the system began to play tricks in his mind. The vast and boundless is Hao, and the heavy and majestic is also Hao, the endless vitality is Lan, and the vast and boundless is also Lan, the one who changes fate against the sky is the law, and the one who rules the will is also the law, the ever-changing is the art, and the one who has destiny and luck is also the art. Now, please recite with me silently. Then the system kept brushing the previous paragraph in Tang Liu's mind like a barrage. Tang Liu could not feel anything except soul power, but this sentence was like a faint thought, just like counting in your mind. Once you count too much, it is difficult to stop if you do not divert your attention. You will keep counting. Now, Tang Liu is in this situation. Unconsciously, his mind is full of this sentence. So, the speed of soul power in his body increased quietly. The next day, early in the morning, when the sun showed a corner in the eastern sky and the first ray of morning light bloomed, Tang Liu woke up from his meditation. The moment he opened his eyes, the blue-black light that was originally flashing in his eyes disappeared instantly. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. The turbid air that had gathered in his chest overnight formed a white silk that rolled in front of him. There was no figure of Tang Hao in his sight. So he subconsciously released the third martial soul and then activated the second soul skill. The blue-black light flashed, and the scenery in front of him suddenly changed, and he came to Tang Hao's room. Tang Liu's eyes immediately fell on Tang Hao, who was sleeping on the bed. "Lazy bastard," Tang Liu muttered, then retracted his spirit and walked out of the room. However, his mood became better because Tang Hao kept his promise and did not leave quietly. While humming the song of his previous life, he went to find rice at home and prepared to cook porridge. As a man in the 21st century, well, young man, cooking is just a basic operation, not to mention that he had specially learned to cook in his previous life. Now it's just cooking porridge. It's easy to do. And it must be better than Tang San's. What? You ask why he didn't cook it before if he cooked better. This question is like, you clean your own dormitory at school more cleanly than your mother cleans your own bedroom. Then will you clean your own bedroom at home? Anyway, I won't. Funny, the crystal rice was put into the pot, and then Tang Liu ran out of the house to find some ingredients. Although he didn't know much about the plants on the Douluo continent, he had the Baidu assistant system. Under the guidance of the system, Tang Liu picked some wild fruits, wild vegetables, and many plants that can be used for seasoning, and even caught a wild rabbit. So, in a way, this assistant system is quite useful. System, I ask you again, do you really have no system space or anything? Tang Liu held the things he picked in his arms, carried the wild rabbit on his back with a straw rope, and then walked towards home. No, the system gave the same answer. I'm not saying anything bad about you, you are simply a loser in your system world, Tang Liu thought with regret. If the host wants a storage space, I don't have it, but I can teach the host to make one. After a while, the system spoke again, but the tone was a little hesitant, as if it was looking for something. Tang Liu's eyes lit up, and then he said, "Really, if the host is willing, it can be done now." The hesitant tone of the system disappeared, and it returned to a smooth and fluent tone. How to do it? I don't have any rare metals and no carving knives now. What should I do? Tang Liu asked curiously. In his understanding, the system should be teaching him the core array and Tao too, so as to make a soul guide. It's very simple. Please find a stone with a volume of about 3 cubic centimeters. Tang Liu, stone? Are you sure you are not kidding me? If the host doesn't believe it, then don't do it. Tang Liu, after a while, he said helplessly, I believe you. Then, he put down his things and began to look for a suitable stone. Of course, he did not forget to tie up the hair. After searching for about 3 minutes, he found a stone that met the system's requirements. In fact, if the system hadn't prompted him, he would have a very vague concept of 3 cubic centimeters. If it was a regular shape, it would be easy to measure it with a fingernail, but he had no way to do it with this stone. After finding the stone, Tang Liu followed the system's instructions, picked a few calla lily leaves, and then wrapped them into a bowl and put them aside for use. Then, following the instructions of the system, I found a kind of bamboo with sharp blades that is unique to Douluo continent, picked a leaf from it, and broke off a small section of its stem. Finally, I returned to the calla lily bowl, cut my finger with a bamboo leaf, and squeezed the blood into the calla lily bowl. 3 more chapters, surprise or not? Chapter 21, Haolan spells. Yes, mana-consuming spells. Hiss, it feels really bad to cut your own finger. Tang Liu's face twitched, and he felt cold in his heart as he watched his blood dripping. After the blood had spread a thin layer on the bottom of the calla lily bowl, Tang Liu quickly picked all the leaves of a small grass that was within reach and quickly crushed them and applied them to the wound. Not long after, the wound stopped bleeding. By the way, the system also told him where to put the bowl. After the bleeding stopped, Tang Liu discarded the grass leaf debris, and then held a bamboo branch in his right hand like a pen, and gently touched the blood in the bowl. Then, he used the bamboo branch to carefully write on the stone in his left hand. Once the blood on the bamboo branch was not enough, he would dip some more in the bowl and continue writing. After he used up all the blood in the bowl, the word on the stone was also finished. He wrote the word. Of course, this word was in the form of small seal script. Tang Liu certainly didn't recognize the word in the small seal script. It was purely the system that projected the seal script onto the stone, and he traced it stroke by stroke. Putting down the bamboo stick, Tang Liu looked a little surprised. Is that all? Not yet, the system said. Now please release the third martial soul and use the first soul skill Haolan mark on this stone. Tang Liu did as the system said, leaving a mark on the stone. Then please sit cross-legged and place the stone about 10 centimeters in front of you, so that the bloody words on it are facing you. Tang Liu did it again, sitting cross-legged and placing the stone in the correct position. Now, please ask the host to inject soul power into the stone through Haolan mark. Hearing this, Tang Liu was stunned. Can I also inject soul power into the marked object through the mark? He couldn't help asking. Yes, the system gave a positive answer. After getting the response, Tang Liu's mind couldn't help but become active. If I can inject soul power into the marked object, then conversely, can I also absorb the soul power of the marked object through the mark? Or to be more general, I can either inject my vitality into the marked object or plunder its vitality. I can either give the marked object everything I have or plunder its everything. And there is no space or distance limit, the system responded to Tang Liu's idea. Oh my god, Tang Liu's excitement was self-evident. It just had to be truly invincible. But I suggest that the host should not try it easily, because this operation consumes a lot of soul power, the system warned. I know, mana consumption spells, I understand, Tang Liu said calmly. Since killing the Mandragora snake, Tang Liu has a deeper understanding of the martial soul of Haolan spells. For example, the first soul skill Haolan mark. Although this soul skill does not require soul power when marking the opponent, if you want to do something with a mark, it will consume soul power to a large extent. For example, just like Tang Liu used the mark to make the Mandragora snake still and explode, that operation drained all the soul power in his body in an instant. At that time, he could clearly feel that if it were not for his lack of soul power, he would have been drawn more. After all, it was a 5,800-year-old mandragora snake. For another example, if Tang Liu used the power of the mark to make Tang San suddenly stop in the air like the mandragora snake, his soul power would be drained almost instantly. If Tang San was replaced by Tang Hao, the speed would be even faster. This is like an ADC whose general attacks consume mana, and the consumption of each general attack is the mana consumption of another person's ultimate move. Isn't this a mana-consuming spell? After thinking it through, Tang Liu finally understood why the two words Haolan in the Haolan magic collection in his previous life felt out of tune with the following words. It seems that the two words Haolan were completely modified later. Tang Liu seriously suspected that the original name of the Haolan magic collection was called mana-consuming spells. What's the matter? Did you feel that it was a bit bad to change to, so you even made a new version of which was not problematic? Then why not just revise the spell collection as well? Is it because of insufficient funds that the revision fee cannot be paid? After finally suppressing the burning soul of complaints, Tang Liu refocused his attention on the stone in front of him. As his attention focused, the phenomenon that had appeared on the mandragora snake also appeared on this stone. In Tang Liu's eyes, the stone gradually faded, and only the rune of the Haolan mark left in its body shone brightly. Looking at the mark, Tang Liu then began to try to transfer his soul power to the stone through the mark. As soon as he moved his mind, Tang Liu felt that his soul power began to decrease. At the same time, in his eyes, the light released by the Haolan mark became stronger. Only 3 seconds later, Tang Liu's soul power was consumed by 10%. Now, please point your right hand at the stone in the form of a sword finger and shout Lin, the system said, and at the same time gave the sword finger pattern. In fact, it is to put the index finger and middle finger together and then extend them, with the ring finger and pinky finger attached to the palm, and the thumb on the ring finger. It is also the common hand gesture in the fairy tale drama. Tang Liu's mouth twitched, and he felt very uncomfortable, but he still did it and shouted Lin. As soon as the voice fell, the stone quickly lit up with a dazzling blood-red light. From Tang Liu's perspective, the blue-black light emitted by the mark was instantly covered by a sudden blood light. In the end, even the mark itself was dyed red, which was very strange. Tang Liu didn't care about being surprised, because the stone that had faded and disappeared in his eyes reappeared, and he finally saw the source of the blood light, which was the word he wrote on the stone. In about 3 breaths, the blood-red light emitted from the stone gradually disappeared, and the word originally written on the surface of the stone also seemed to have life and began to erode into the inside of the stone, and finally carved on the stone. At the same time, the originally irregular stone unexpectedly turned into a perfectly round bead, which was quite magical. It's done now. Tang Liu was still a little bit unbelievable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22, Something strange seems to have come in. Yes, it's done, the system said. This is the simplest and lowest level storage magic weapon. It has a 3 cubic meter storage space. After 24 hours, the storage space will collapse, and the items inside will disappear along with the collapse of the space. In addition, please do not put living things in it, otherwise it will immediately cause the space to collapse. Listening to the system's explanation, Tang Liu's eyes were full of novelty. You said, this is a magic weapon, it is made of runes. It is indeed a magic weapon, the system replied. In other words, immortals and cultivators exist. Tang Liu's eyes were faintly excited. Soul Masters are original equivalent to a kind of cultivator, the system replied. Then system, since you can teach me how to make a magic weapon, can you teach me the cultivation method, such as the divine art of seizing heaven's creation? Tang Liu felt his heartbeat speed up. You want to learn, the system spoke, but the tone changed from the mechanical form to full of playfulness. The excitement in Tang Liu's heart seemed to be extinguished by a basin of cold water. At this moment, all thoughts of learning the exercises disappeared. In his heart and mind, there was only one extremely clear thought. There is a pit here. And it is definitely a big pit. I can't agree to it, I absolutely can't agree to it. Well, I am the successor of socialism, I will put an end to feudal superstition, Tang Liu said in his heart, full of vigilance. The host only needs to touch the things he wants to put into the storage space with a stone, and the items can be put into the storage space. Inject soul power into the stone, and use the mind to extract the things put into the storage space. The system continued to introduce the storage instruments, and the sound returned to the mechanical form. The playful meaning just now was as if, at that moment, another consciousness suddenly occupied the consciousness of the system, replaced the system, and said that sentence. And now, the system continued to introduce the storage instruments as if nothing had happened, as if the sentence just now did not exist, and the scene just now was actually just a dream. Thinking of the Howland magic encyclopedia that allowed him to travel through, Tang Liu felt that he seemed to have fallen into a big pit a long time ago. Shaking his head, he temporarily threw these thoughts out of his mind. Why think so much now? Even if I know, can I jump out of this pit now? It is better to let nature take its course and see what is inside this pit. Moreover, it seems that there is nothing disadvantageous to me at present. What's more, he is just an orphan. A trace of self-mockery appeared at the corner of Tang Liu's lips. But what can an orphan get from him? He picked up the storage magic weapon and put everything except the rabbit into it. Holding the rabbit ears and the storage magic weapon, Tang Liu slowly walked towards home, humming a little tune. After arriving home, Tang Liu put away all the things he brought from outside, and then went to call Tang Hao to get up and have breakfast. Old man, get up and eat. Tang Liu shook Tang Hao's sidelined body with his hands without hesitation, and shouted loudly at the same time. I know, stop shaking. Tang Hao opened his eyes, his tone was grim but revealed helplessness. Hurry up, I won't wait for you. Tang Liu gestured to him with a fist and threatened. But that cute little face and soft baby voice really didn't have any deterrent power. Tang Liu walked out first, then sat down at the dining table, picked up the only bowl on the table and started drinking, occasionally picking up 2 chopsticks of kimchi. A moment later, Tang Hao walked out, and then looked at the big iron pot opposite Tang Liu on the dining table. Tang Hao, Tang Liu put down the bowl, looked at him and said, what are you hesitating about? Everything in the pot is yours, drink it up in one gulp. Tang Hao, after a while, Tang Hao still sat down with a blank expression, then picked up the big iron pot and simmered it in one gulp. The porridge was not very hot anymore, and with Tang Hao's cultivation level, he was not afraid of this level of temperature. But it was half a pot of porridge, and Tang Hao sipped it for more than 10 seconds. Moreover, after drinking it, he felt a little full. Wiping his mouth, Tang Hao looked at Tang Liu who was laughing across from him and said expressionlessly, how much rice is left at home? Tang Liu stopped laughing first, then slowly said, don't worry, it's enough for us to eat for another 5 days. Hearing this, Tang Hao couldn't help but frown. We have to stay here for at least half a year, and you are wasting food like this. Tang Liu smiled. You think I'm wasting? Then you should go out and work to earn money to support the family. After hearing his words, Tang Hao was about to get angry, but was interrupted by Tang Liu's next words. Besides, if we don't eat more now, it will be a waste if we leave in 5 days, Tang Liu said. Tang Hao was stunned, and didn't understand what he said for a while. When he reacted, he asked in a shocked tone, what level are you now? Level 25 is about to break through level 26. After preparing the ingredients for lunch, I plan to practice for a while, and I should be able to break through level 26, Tang Liu said lightly, but his eyes were full of pride and smiles. Yes, after one night of practice, Tang Liu's soul power had directly broken through by nearly 2 levels. Tang Hao was a little bit unbelievable, then he flashed behind Tang Liu, put his palm on his shoulder, and then probed his soul power. Everything is normal. How did your cultivation level improve so fast? Tang Hao frowned and asked. I don't know, maybe I am more gifted, Tang Liu said. He really didn't know about the system brushing barrage in his mind, so he was confused about the speed of his cultivation improvement, and finally attributed it to his talent. People are all a little vain. Tang Hao was completely surprised this time. If Tang Liu's cultivation can always maintain this speed, then it is more than just a gifted talent, it is simply against the will of heaven. Seeing that Tang Hao was slow to speak, Tang Liu opened his hand on his shoulder with a look of disgust. You just wiped your mouth and you touched me with your hand. You don't cherish the clothes because you didn't wash them. Tang Hao, after a while, he couldn't help but look at Tang Liu with disgust and said, you talk as if you are the one who washes the clothes at home. Tang Liu was surprised to hear that. What happened today? Tang Hao, this old man, would also mock people. However, as a good young man of the new century, how could he admit defeat in such a thing? So Tang Liu continued with a cheerful face, let's not laugh at each other, okay? Anyway, we are all your children. Who do I resemble with this character? Don't you know it after looking in the mirror yourself, Tang Hao? Chapter 23, Damn. It's a beating of love. Several black lines were drawn on Tang Hao's forehead. Tang Hao's face was dark. Tang Hao was furious. You little bastard, do you want to die, bastard? So you are an old rabbit? Hey little rabbit, do you know this old guy? Tang Liu looked at the little wild rabbit tied to the side, and frantically tested the edge of death. The little wild rabbit trembled when he felt the murderous aura released by someone. Don't involve me. Tang Hao's anger value is max. Lifting Tang Liu's collar, Tang Hao's figure turned into a stream of light and flew into Tang Liu's room. After sitting on Tang Liu's bed, he placed Tang Liu horizontally on his knees, and then slapped Tang Liu's little butt with his right hand without mercy. Tang Liu, who finally reacted to what was about to happen, subconsciously exclaimed, "Fuck, it's a beating of love. Dad, I was wrong, damn, I forgot that this is my own dad, not those bad friends in the previous life. I'm kidding." Tang Hao sneered, you know you're wrong now? It's too late. At this moment, Tang Hao's slap fell, and Tang Liu cried out in pain. After beating Tang Liu subdued, Tang Hao asked him to practice in the room, and he went to drink refreshed. It turns out that beating a child is really addictive. It's decided that if Tang Liu doesn't obey in the future, he will be dragged out and beaten a few more times. Hiss, this old guy hits without mercy. Is he still a biological child? Oh no, it's not right, he beats so mercilessly. Isn't that exactly what a biological father would do? Hiss, it hurts so much, how can I practice like this? Tang Liu covered his butt with his hand and complained. Host, have you forgotten your first soul skill, the control of the virtual spirit? Tang Liu, fuck. Tang Liu suddenly felt bad. Forget it, if I dare to use it, I guess I will be beaten even worse in the future. Tang Liu comforted himself like this, and then he lay down on the bed so that his butt would not hurt. System, can I practice meditation while lying like this? He asked. Okay, host, just practice, the system said. Okay, after answering, Tang Liu closed his eyes and began to communicate with his soul power with his mental power. Really, it hurts so much that I can't even walk. How can I make lunch later? Muttering, Tang Liu entered the state of practice. At the same time, the system also began to swipe the barrage in Tang Liu's mind. It was still the same sentence. However, I don't know what kind of magic this sentence has, which can stimulate the soul power in Tang Liu's body to run at an unimaginable speed without any damage to his meridians. Even under the rush of such a fast soul power torrent, his meridians are gradually becoming tougher. In this way, Tang Liu quietly crossed the threshold of level 25, entered level 26, and quickly moved towards level 27. 5 days later in the morning, Tang Liu's soul power reached level 30 as he said. On the bed, he practiced cross-legged, and his third martial spirit was released automatically. 2 blue-black spirit rings were slightly rhythmic around his body, and the light emitted illuminated the whole room slightly. The door curtain moved slightly, and Tang Hao came in at some point, standing by the bed and looking at Tang Liu, with a complicated expression. Sure enough, he was level 30. He was very pleased, because he saw the hope of revenge in Tang San and Tang Liu. He was also very confused in his heart. Why Tang Liu had such a fast training speed? After a moment of stun, Tang Hao was shocked again. This is, I saw that Tang Liu's body was constantly emitting some blue-black light mist. The 2 blue-black spirit rings around him became more condensed in these mists, and the aura they emitted became stronger than before. At the same time, the mist surrounded Tang Liu and formed a halo. As the mist continued to increase and become thicker, the halo was gradually becoming more condensed. Finally, the third spirit ring of Haolan's magic was condensed. After 3 circles of spirit rings circled around Tang Liu for 3 cycles, they slowly disappeared and returned to Tang Liu's body. After another breath, Tang Liu opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Tang Hao standing in front of him. He was stunned for a moment, and said, "Why are you in my room?" But Tang Hao ignored him and said with a complicated expression, "What level of spirit power are you now?" Tang Liu was a little confused, and said after looking at the system page, "Level 31, what's wrong?" "Nothing." Tang Hao opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything, and walked out of the room. "Hurry up and pack up and come out for breakfast. Since you are now level 30, we will leave in a while." "Oh, After lifting the curtain and walking out, Tang Hao's expression instantly became sad. Isn't it the same as a yin to cultivate spirit rings by yourself? As a titled Douluo, he naturally saw that Tang Liu was not a spirit beast. But since Tang Liu can cultivate spirit rings by himself, does it also mean that after killing Tang Liu, he can also obtain spirit rings and spirit bones? Tang Hao walked towards the stove, feeling heavy-hearted. But soon, he regained his spirit. No matter what, he would protect Xiao Liu. Moreover, with Tang Liu's extraordinary teleportation soul skill, it would be difficult for others to catch him. Dad, you asked me to come out for dinner. Did you cook for me? Tang Liu walked out of the room and looked at Tang Hao in surprise. Tang Hao said indifferently, it's not like I can't cook. Otherwise, would you and your brother have starved to death when you were young? You have only cooked for 4 years on and off, and since I was 4 years old, my brother has been cooking for our family alone, okay? You actually have the nerve to say that my brother and I are going to starve to death and don't know who is the father, Tang Liu said with disdain, but his movements were not slow. He sat down and picked up the porridge to drink. Tang Hao was choked by him again, and clenched his fist to show that he wanted to beat him up. After Tang Liu finished his meal slowly, they planned to leave. Tang Liu was carrying a small bag, which contained a set of clothes and a few silver soul coins. The money was earned by Tang Hao from making farm tools in the past 5 days, and was taken away by Tang Liu, otherwise Tang Hao would definitely spend it on drinking. After carrying the small bag, Tang Liu looked up at Tang Hao and asked, where are we going now? To the Xingdao Great Forest. I'll get you a soul ring, Tang Hao said lightly. Oh, Tang Liu nodded, then naturally opened his arms and looked at Tang Hao. Tang Hao, what are you doing? Aren't we flying? No, walk. Chapter 24 I really acted like a spoiled child. Tang Liu took a deep breath in his heart. I am now a 6-year-old child, a 6-year-old child, a 6-year-old child. No, just fly over there, okay? In order not to walk, Tang Liu chose to act like a spoiled child at the cost of his old face. However, he had an extremely good-looking face, blinked his beautiful big eyes like gems, and coupled with a soft and cute baby voice, this act of spoiled childishness, the lethality is max. Tang Hao, in the sky, Tang Hao held Tang Liu and flew at a high speed towards the starred out Great Forest. Tang Hao, what's going on? How can I fly in the sky? What happened? Looking down, Tang Liu in his arms has fallen asleep. Tang Hao, let me sort it out. About half an hour ago. If he remembered correctly, this stinky boy who always got along with him actually acted like a spoiled child to him. What happened next? It seemed like he was under an illusion, and he actually agreed to the boy's request to fly with a doting face. Damn, after all, he's my child, I can't resist him when he starts to act like a spoiled child. Tang Hao thought depressedly. What else can I do? I have been flying for so long, should I go down and walk now? After all, he's my child, I have to kneel down and spoil him when I need to spoil him. Thinking of this, Tang Hao increased his soul power defense against Tang Liu while increasing his flying speed. With his cultivation, at the current speed, he should be able to reach the Xingdao Great Forest in the afternoon. But this kid really sleeps well. Why am I a little envious? Tang Hao kept thinking about it in his mind. For a while, the pain of his wife's death and his longing for his wife faded a lot. Xingdao Great Forest, the largest gathering place for soul beasts on Douluo continent, is also the first of the 3 major human forbidden areas on the continent. The height of any tree here exceeds 20 meters. There are also swamps, hills and other landforms inside the forest, which are suitable for most of the soul beasts known on the continent. Of course, this is also a paradise for soul masters. A paradise with extremely high mortality and opportunities. Tang Hao landed from the air when he was 10 miles away from the starred out Great Forest. Even as strong as he was, he would not fly directly from the sky over the starred out Great Forest. We're here, wake up. After landing, Tang Hao gently patted Tang Liu's back to wake him up. Huh? Are we here so soon? Tang Liu rubbed his eyes and yawned. Tang Hao, I held you and flew for 3 hours, how could it not be fast? After putting Tang Liu down, Tang Hao sat down cross-legged on the spot and began to recover his soul power. Entering the starred out Great Forest, even he did not dare to be careless, so he had to restore his soul power to the peak first, so that he could deal with danger. Long-term high-speed flight is also very soul-consuming for a titled Douluo. Tang Liu sat down not far from him, boredly looking at the looming forest in the distance. About half an hour later, Tang Hao ended his meditation, got up again, and pulled Tang Liu, who was about to fall asleep, towards the starred-out great forest. "Have you decided what you want for your second soul ring?" Tang Hao asked on the way. Tang Liu thought about it seriously, and then said, "Group invisibility, change it, it must be a soul skill that can only be produced by a 10,000-year soul beast." Tang Hao rejected it without thinking. Then, group weakness. Or group frenzy, Tang Liu continued. "Continue, these two are at least 10,000-year level. What about purifying negative states? The effect of 100 years is too poor, 1,000 years is barely enough, and 10,000 years is good. Keep changing." Tang Liu looked at Tang Hao speechlessly. "Then why don't you recommend one to me? If the master was here, he would probably be able to find a suitable soul beast for each of the soul skills he mentioned before." "Healing recovery, how about it?" Tang Hao hesitated for a while and said. With his mind racing, plus the advantage of the plot, Tang Liu instantly understood what Tang Hao wanted to do. So he refused without thinking. "No." Tang Hao suddenly became a little excited, stopped his steps, stood in front of Tang Liu, looked at him and said, "Why not? Your martial soul is originally a mutated auxiliary martial soul. If you add healing soul skills, you can protect yourself better." Hearing this, Tang Liu couldn't help but sneer. "Better protect myself? Are you sure?" Tang Hao saw the mockery and coldness in his youngest son's eyes, and couldn't help but be stunned. "Do you dare to tell the truth? Are you still a man?" Tang Liu continued, regardless of Tang Hao's ugly face. Tang Hao opened his mouth, as if he had thousands of words to say, but they were blocked in his throat, choking uncomfortably. "Let me be frank, do you want me to use healing soul skills to save people?" Tang Liu didn't give Tang Hao time to think, and the question followed. Tang Hao was silent for a moment and nodded. Tang Liu sneered, "Then I'll continue to ask, is the person you want to save your mother?" Tang Hao's figure seemed to be struck by lightning, and he staggered and almost lost his balance. "Yes." Tang Hao was silent for a long time, and then he spoke tremblingly. A man of 8 feet tall, his eyes gradually showed some water. Tang Liu looked indifferent, pretending not to see Tang Hao's embarrassment, and continued, "The maximum age of the soul ring I can bear now is 3,100 years. Healing soul skills?" Tisk. At this point, a trace of disdain appeared at the corner of his lips. "Just like you said that the purification soul skill of 100 years is too weak, 1,000 years is okay, and 10,000 years is good. In my opinion, the healing soul skill of 100 years is useless, 1,000 years is too weak, and 10,000 years is okay. The best is the healing soul skill of 100,000 years, for example, Emerald Swan Biji is not bad. But the other party should be absorbing the power of Xianmeng Ice Silkworm in the fierce place of Xingdao Great Forest and fall into deep sleep. Besides, Tang Liu also knows himself. Biji is the wife of Emperor Yan, the most fierce beast in the entire Douluo continent. He is absolutely no match for her, not to mention that the Silver Dragon King is sleeping in the starred-out Great Forest. So Tang Liu's target is Biji's people, those emerald swans of the 10,000-year level. With Tang Liu's current cultivation speed and the soul ring addition status of his third martial soul, he estimates that the third soul ring of his first martial soul, the Void Spirit Blue Silver Emperor, can be added with a 10,000-year level, and the age should be just after 10,000 years. But the soul ring position Tang Liu reserved for the Emerald Swan is the 5th or 6th soul ring. If it is 100,000 years old, it would be the best. Chapter 25. Tang Liu has many bold ideas. Tang San had been practicing various techniques of the Tang sect before he was 6 years old, and Tang Liu, apart from sleeping, was thinking about his future development direction. Because he was not sure what his martial soul was at that time, he almost took into account every type of soul master, and also thought clearly about what soul skills each soul ring should obtain. And no matter what kind of soul master he was, he always put the matter of curing a yin first. At that time, he thought that if he was a soul master of the auxiliary system or food system, he could directly obtain the healing soul skills by adding soul rings. But if it was a soul master of other categories, he would consider obtaining one or even more life attribute soul bones. If I just add 1,000-year healing soul skill now, it would be too wasteful. In order to be able to fight against the Spirit Hall, I absolutely cannot let my soul skills be repeated. Therefore, the healing soul skill can only be 10,000 years, and it is my 5th or 6th soul skill, so that the healing effect of my martial soul can be maximized. Tang Liu stared into Tang Hao's eyes, with a serious expression, and said very seriously. After listening to his words, Tang Hao's expression was dull. He really didn't expect that Tang Liu, who was usually lazy, greedy and useless, and always loved to pose and talk back to him, actually thought more deeply than him. And he was only 6 years old. "How did you know about your mother?" Tang Hao restrained his emotions for a moment and asked again. "What do you mean?" Tang Liu, who was pretending to be cool, said this subconsciously. After saying it, he realized that he was going to be in trouble. Tang Hao was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. "So you have always known everything?" Tang Liu was extremely depressed. "Forget it, since the words have been said, there is no other way. I can only continue to make it up." However, he felt that there was still room for maneuver, so he said, "Not all the things, I only know a rough idea." "Then how did you know that your mother was injured because of the spirit hall?" Like Tang Liu, Tang Hao was still hiding it. "My spirit told me," Tang Liu said. Tang Hao was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. "Yes, your mother's martial spirit is Blue-Silver Emperor, and you are also Blue-Silver Emperor. It is probably the bond between martial spirit and blood that gave you some of her memories. Well, as expected, sometimes you only say half of the words, and others will automatically help you fill in the gaps. Novels are true to me. Let's go, find your second soul ring. Seeing that you have planned the 5th and 6th soul skills, I guess you have also considered your second soul skill? Tell me, what do you want?" Tang Hao took Tang Liu's hand again and led him to the Xingdao Great Forest. "I told you." "Huh? That's what I told you just now. The first choice is group invisibility, the second choice is group weakness or group violence, and the last is purification. Are these soul skills really not produced by 1,000-year soul beasts? Can't we find 1,000-year-old soul beasts with these soul skills? And when the master was looking for my first soul skill, he also said that soul skills such as virtualization are generally only possessed by 10,000-year soul beasts, but then he still found a civet cat as my first soul ring. Dad, are you a bad student?" Tang Hao. "We'll see after we enter the forest." "Oh, so you are actually a bad student?" "Right, Tang Hao, I don't know why, after the little episode just now, Tang Hao seemed to be a piece of iron that finally softened under the burning of a fire, and became a lot gentler. At least, more like a father. Tang Liu and Tang Hao stayed in the outer area of the Xingdao Great Forest for 10 days, but they didn't find a soul beast suitable for Tang Liu. However, although he did not encounter a suitable soul beast in these 10 days, Tang Liu's soul power broke through again and reached level 33. After becoming a soul master, Tang Liu's cultivation speed finally slowed down. Even the barrage of the system could not allow Tang Liu to reach the cultivation speed of the 5 days in the Holy Soul Village. But it was extremely scary to increase the soul power by 2 levels in 10 days. "Dad, how about we go out first, prepare and then go to the mixed area to look for it?" In 10 days, Tang Liu and Tang Hao both looked exhausted. Tang Hao was okay, after all, his cultivation was there. But Tang Liu showed a little fatigue in his spirit. If it weren't for Tang Hao, the titled Douluo, who was always guarding by his side, Tang Liu would definitely not be able to hold on for long in the extremely dangerous Xingdao Great Forest. "Then I'll listen to you." Tang Hao hesitated for a while and agreed. After all, if this continued, Tang Liu might not be able to hold on. Although Tang Liu is now a soul master, his body is still that of a 6-year-old child after all. After going out to rest, entering the mixed area of the Xingdao Great Forest, it is more likely to find a suitable soul beast. In the past 10 days, Tang Hao has killed many soul beasts that actively attacked, and took them all out of the forest to sell. Soul beasts are very valuable, not to mention that Tang Hao killed soul beasts that were basically more than 600 years old to 7,000 years old, which is even more valuable. Therefore, the two of them are not short of money recently. As for Tang Liu, he had a system, and he had already determined the location of the soul beast he wanted on the 8th day, but he was struggling to find a suitable excuse and delayed for another 2 days. After resting outside for a night and buying all the things that might be used, Tang Hao took Tang Liu into the Xingdao Great Forest again. This time they went directly into the mixed area of 1,000 meters. In this area, 100-year soul beasts are rare, and basically there are 1,000-year soul beasts. At the same time, there are also many 10,000-year soul beasts living here. A little further inside is the inner area, where 10,000-year soul beasts are particularly active. After that is the core area, where the soul beasts are at least 50,000 years old, and even 100,000-year soul beasts can be encountered. Finally, there is the most central and fierce place. Now, there are two 100,000-year soul beasts active there, the azure bull python and the titan giant ape. As for the other fierce beasts over 200,000 years old, they are still sleeping at the bottom of the lake there. Tang Liu estimated that 100,000 years ago, the Xianmeng ice silkworm came to the Xingdao Great Forest and was captured by the group of fierce beasts led by Di Tian. After that, they fell into deep sleep due to absorbing the power of the Xianmeng ice silkworm. It was at this time that a new batch of 100,000-year soul beasts were born. Namely Xiao Wu's mother, Xiao Wu, the azure bull python, and the titan giant ape. As for Xiao Wu's father, it is estimated that he was born earlier, and he might have been killed by Di Tian and his men. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.